Check test 1, 2, 3. Check test.
Good afternoon. We're bringing together the Veterans Ceremony. So first, I want to ask Captain Chuck Roots and Navy Chaplain and do the invocation. Please rise for the invocation for the presentation colors and the
Please join me in a word of prayer. Heavenly Father, we come to you this day with gratitude in our hearts. This nation, United States of America, is a gift from you to the world. We are proud to call ourselves Americans. There are many in this audience today who have served in the military in various capacities over various decades, who have given themselves for the defense of this country, for the defense of liberty and freedom. Those are gifts from you. No man can give us that. So we just want to say thank you, Lord. We are truly blessed. And as we share today, on this day where we recognize our veterans, we simply want to say, Lord, you be glorified in all that is said and done this day. We ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Okay, please, presentation of colors. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for the national anthem. Nicole Lee, one of our clerk of the board staff members, will be singing it.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets ran glare, the bombs bursting in air gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? Right, don't live, don't live, don't live. Right.
Please be seated. I'd like to acknowledge our color guard from the AMVETS post 1947. Sandra Goodman, Army First Sergeant, retired. Bobby Lafargue, Air Force Colonel, nurse, retired. And June Sidlakis, Navy, retired radio man, second class. Now I'd like to invite Susan Verdi, our Veteran Service Officer, to say a few words. Susan?
Good afternoon, Chairman Wynn, members of the board, and County Administrator, Mr. Rilwerding. On behalf of the Department of Healthcare Services, Director Gabe Dieterich, and the men and women of the Veteran Service Office, I would like to extend a heartfelt thank you and welcome to all veterans, reserve, guard, active duty, service members, and of course, our veteran employees of San Joaquin County. I'd like to appreciate their sacrifice and brave service to our nation. I'd also like to say good afternoon and thank you to our Blue Star and Gold Star family members here today. To our Gold Star family members in particular, some of you I'm getting to know personally in my new position now. I would like to extend a heartfelt and special recognition. Please know that we remember and honor the ultimate sacrifice your family personally has paid to keep our nation free. We accept that we can never fully understand the depth of the pain that you carry on a daily basis because your son or your daughter has paid the price for my freedom, our freedom, and our nation's freedom. We recognize it, and yet we cannot fully understand that this precious freedom is not free until a loved one pays the ultimate price. It's not guaranteed, but it is carried on by younger generations, full of hope, with full awareness and courage in their hearts. They volunteer. They become the next generation to step forward, to take the sacred oath, and to defend the Constitution of the United States of America. So to those young people today who are considering wearing the uniform of our country and to defend our nation, I salute you. There is no greater honor. These young people then become our Blue Star families, whose sons and daughters, brothers and sisters, friends and cousins defend our country during a period of war. They also stand ready to make the ultimate sacrifice as we pray that they will all return safely home. Myself, along with every veteran within earshot, has taken that very oath and defended that commitment. So we all stand alongside you today and honor your loved one who paid that debt on our behalf so that we can live our lives without fear. We recognize that whether your loved one is currently in basic training, and I did hear some conversations as I was sitting in the audience of some folks who are getting shipped out, serving stateside or deployed overseas, those members are no longer here to celebrate Veterans Day, Thanksgiving, Christmases, and birthdays with you and the rest of your friends and family. However, for our Gold Star families, those service member voices are still silent today, even on Election Day. Today is a day that every American has the privilege to exercise their own voices and make their choices at the ballot box. It is because of the sacrifice your family member made that everyone in this chamber, in this building, and listening to my voice can vote today. Today we take time to recognize your loved ones. We give them a final voice, and we want their sacrifice to be heard. They are all our heroes, resting in the arms of the angels. To those men and women, we proudly and honorably salute you and your families. Thank you all for being with us here today. And for those in the audience who would like to help pay back, in a very small way, a debt of gratitude to our Gold Star families, there's a Gold Star Family Monument being constructed in San Joaquin County on the grounds of the new VA CBOC. And I know they'll be talking about that a little later today, so please see myself or Mike Anderson. Also, my office will be conducting a special, separate presentation at the conclusion of the Board of Supervisors Veterans Recognition Ceremony, which will be addressing the concerns of my San Joaquin County veteran brothers and sisters, along with rolling out our 5-year plan. Please remain after the conclusion of today's ceremony if you would like to hear the specific updates and plans for your county veteran service office. Chairman, that concludes my presentation. Thank you all, and happy Veterans Day to all. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to invite Captain Chuck Roots to introduce the Veterans Service Agencies we have in San Joaquin County. Chaplain Roots.
Thank you, Supervisor Wynn. We have several organizations that are involved in helping our veterans in various ways. Some of those folks aren't able to be here today, unfortunately, and I'm not sure if all of them are here that I think are here, but is Kethrick Cottrell here? Okay, I don't think so. Jessica Mize? Hi. Jessica, would you please come and share with us the American Legion Auxiliary?
Good afternoon. I put good morning, but it's good afternoon now.
Good afternoon.
Board of Supervisors and guests, thank you for giving us this time to share a little bit of what we do. I am the president of the American Legion Auxiliary, Carl Ross Post 16, here in Stockton on 2020 Plymouth Road. Just a little bit history of the American Legion. It was founded in 1919. With nearly about 1 million members, all walks of life. The auxiliary helps the veterans, and we volunteer programs. We do volunteer programs. We have Americanism, children and youth, veterans rehabilitation, legislature, education. There's a few more, and I didn't write them down, but anyway. As you see, I'm really nervous about this.
Okay.
We originally are organized to assist American Legion, the American Legion. The auxiliary has achieved its own unique identity while working side by side with the veterans. The Legion, the auxiliary interests have broadened to be with all the community. The eligibility, we have over 10,500 units. We are as little as units, then we go to districts, and then we go to national. So we have 10,500 units in all the states. The eligibility requirements to become a member are to be a mother, daughter, sister, granddaughter, great-granddaughters, or great-grandmothers to the spouses of our veterans. I even have applications if anybody would like to join. There's two classes of our members, our membership, which are built up from the seniors who are some of us who are over 18, and then the younger ones are the juniors, 18, of course, and younger. And we have little tots and teens, which are from the infants, as young as a few months old. I think it's till about a year old when you become a junior. Like I said, we're the community and we're volunteers that we try to help serve the military, the veterans, and their families here in our community. We also have the Girls State and the Boy Staters through the Legion. One of the hardest things about belonging to the American Legion Auxiliary is trying to describe all the things that we do, because there's so many. We have a large variety of services that we provide to the veterans, military, and their families. There's a lot to say, and I know I only have a little bit time, so with closing, I just would like for everybody to remember their veterans, not only on Veterans Day, November 11th, or the month, but every day. Don't forget to thank your veteran, because the war for our veterans is never over till the day they die. Our veterans have PTSD, which is post-traumatic stress. To me, I also have PTSD. My PTSD stands for patience, tenderness, sensitivity, and devotion. I've been with my veteran for over 52 years. You think you might know a person, but you never do. Like I said, their war is never over till the day they die. So please remember to shake a hand, a fist bump, or whatever it's called, and say thank you. Thank you to your veterans. Thank you for allowing me this time to speak. Thank you again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jessica, and that's very true. Those who are home, not in combat, also serve the wives, the children, the mothers, and the fathers of our military members. So those are also to be honored. I would like to, at this time, ask Mr. Stan Rapata if he would come up and share his experience working with veterans at the University of the Pacific Military and Veteran Student Center.
Good afternoon. I'm an old senior chief, so kind of forgive my roughness and a little bit callous. 4 years ago, well, first of all, I usually stay in the background. You usually see me with other people that I support, like Richard Campos, who is currently in the Ukraine. He left for there Sunday. Anyway, I retired from the military after 32 years. I was drafted in the Army, served in the Air Force, and I finished with the Navy, which I believe was the best service for me. And then I got the Marines to work for me. After I left the military, the San Joaquin Delta College asked, I got a job with them. I got lucky. and I spent 20 years with them. So, so yeah, if you do the math, I'm getting old. A couple of the vets that I sent from Delta College to the University of Pacific asked me if I would please go to the university and help them build a veteran center. And I said, sure. I was going to make it really slick. I'm retired twice, don't feel like working anymore. So I told them, I said, first, the university has to call me and ask me to please come work for them. My second condition was that they had to agree to let me do whatever the hell I wanted to. And then the third was they had to agree to pay me regardless of what I did. Damn if they didn't call me. And that's the way it is. I don't work for the University of Pacific. I work for the veterans of the University of Pacific in concert with the support of the University of Pacific. They've been very generous with veterans at the university. We now have a facility here in Stockton. It's 2,800 square feet, which provides for the needs of the veterans at the University of Pacific. We've also extended that to San Joaquin Delta College. Currently, we're in the process of renovating an apartment building that will be specifically designated as veteran housing. Anyway, that concludes what I have to say. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you, San. Is it possible for people to come by and see what you got over there? Yeah, it's a beautiful setting. It's right across the street from the tower, and very nice facility. If you haven't been by there, do make it a point of going by. The next presenter is going to be Martha Snyder from Carl Ross Post 16, American Veterans.
Thank you, Mr. Roots, and again, good afternoon, Chairman Wynn and members of the board. Like Mr. Roots says, I am from Carl Ross Post 16, and truly what Jessica May shared with you about our auxiliary, we couldn't be the veteran organization that we are without the auxiliary backing us up. Yesterday, in particular, the auxiliary did a wonderful job helping our post say goodbye to our beloved captain of our honor guard, Joseph Edwin Goodwin, and help his family process that day. And again, without our auxiliary, we would be nothing without their support. What Carl Ross Post 16 as a veteran organization does is very similar to some of the other organizations here in the room today, is we are veterans helping veterans. And in San Joaquin County, we also have the United Veteran Council, where a number of us come together from this room and, again, look at veterans helping veterans. In particular, coming up in the very near future on this Veterans Day, we have had a donation to our post for a free meal. Doors open at 5 p.m. Dinner will be served about 6 p.m. They're looking to serve 150 veterans and their families a tri-tip dinner, totally donated. Like, wow. And then 2 days later, on November the 13th, with the help of our auxiliary, we will put on our traditional Thanksgiving dinner starting at 1 p.m. until the food runs out. We've got 5 turkeys, 5 hams, and that's what we do about veterans helping veterans. So anybody that's listening is please know you have a place to come. The other thing that we try to do at Carl Ross Post 16 is be available every Friday night, year-round. We used to not be year-round, but every Friday night, and hopefully this year, including December the 30th, so that veterans that don't have families to support them have a place that they know that they can come and hang out and have a pretty good time. Also coming up on December the 10th, it's very important since we have a presentation by our VSO for San Joaquin County today, is they will help us and the American Legion put on a veteran benefits affair from 9 to 4. And that day, we will help veterans throughout San Joaquin County. Any veteran that walks through the door, and I'm hoping somebody's out there listening, please come and look at taking that day that you don't have to go to work to come in and meet with the VSO and get your claims processed or started. If you are one of those that is having an issue and need to put in an appeal for a claim that's been denied, please come and talk with Susan Ferry and her staff on that particular day. We will also be reaching out, making phone calls to veterans that we know in the county to get them back involved in veteran organizations. And best of all, from 12 to 4, it's the Army-Navy game day. So come have some good fun with us, regardless of what branch of service. We're there to have a good time and to meet with veterans and do that thing about camaraderie and esprit de corps. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I got to say it. Go Navy, beat Army. Okay. Sorry, Elwood. I would like to, at this point, have Mr. Michael Emerson, who is the Post Commander of American Veterans and Vets.
Thank you, Captain. Thank you to all the supervisors, and thank you to all my fellow veterans and those that support them. Thank you for being here today. So I'm Commander Michael Emerson. I'm the commander of the local AMVETS post that was named after Richard Pittman, one of the sons of Stockton, Medal of Honor recipient. And I served in the Marine Corps for 10 years and a Desert Storm veteran. So I didn't know that we were going to talk about our group, so I'm going to kind of go with wing it and tell a little bit about AMVETS. What AMVETS started in 1947, which is the reason we chose 1947 as our post number. And what we do is we actually go out into the community, help veterans whenever we can. We help support homeless veterans. We help get people signed up with the VA. Whatever we can do to help veterans, helping those that have just come out of the service, and we help try to get them settled and that kind of thing. But AMVETS, what's nice about AMVETS is that it's open to all veterans, as long as you're honorably discharged and you're an American citizen. So we have quite a few people that are members. The Mayor Lincoln is a member of our post. We have 3 Medal of Honor recipients that are also members of our post living. So once again, I don't have a whole lot to say, but we are here. We support the city. This coming Sunday, we actually have an event that we're doing, which I left a letter on your desks, but also just those of you that haven't heard. But on the 13th, Sunday the 13th, we're meeting at 1 p.m. at the DMV, and we're going to be going to different homeless encampments. And we're going with other veterans groups. We're going with the fire, the police department. We're also going with like Catholic Charities and other groups. We're going to go and give clothing and food and sleeping bags, etc. So if you'd like to join us, you're more than welcome. Again, it's this Sunday at 1 p.m. at the DMV. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm going to ask Bob Benz if he would come up at this time and speak to the DAV Charities of San Joaquin County.
Please forgive me, I forgot my hat. I brought the wrong car this morning. Go Army. I'm his vice. DAV Charities of San Joaquin County is a legitimate 501c3 in good standing with the state. We've been in business over 50 years. Funny thing, most people don't know we exist. But we're one of those kind of stealth organizations that is kind of in the background most of the time. I think the other veterans groups, by and large, know who we are. We don't limit ourselves to any one sphere of influence. We favor all veterans. I had the privilege of receiving the highest award in the nation the first time it was given by the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. And I associated with DAV Charities because I could work with everybody. I didn't have to limit myself to any one organization. To give you an idea of who we are and what we do, you're going to run into a veteran sooner or later who's going to need us. An example, I'll start off with, you guys know Liz Blanchard. Well, she arranged for us to get a warehouse 8 or 10 years ago. When we take a homeless veteran off the street, we make it available to him, one dip at the well, so to speak. We buy beds, we buy microwaves, we collect the kinds of things that you take for granted when you get up in the morning, you know, like sheets and blankets and a nightstand and a lamp, maybe a towel in the bathroom and a toaster or a waffle iron or, of course, the microwaves and the coffee pot and the stuff that everybody takes for granted in the kitchen, including the table and chairs, and maybe a recliner or a love seat and a lamp and a TV in the living room. Funny thing, my homeless guys don't want any computers. I don't get it. They might be smarter than the rest of us. At any rate, so we have that service available out at the Port of Stockton. Beyond that, we give this thing says 6 to 8. COVID has been a little lean in terms of our donations of cash. So last year we gave 3 scholarships at Delta College. We're in the process of endowing a scholarship at the University of the Pacific. Our scholarships don't go just to veterans. We prefer veterans with straight A averages, but sometimes kids or grandkids get in there too, if they're really good students and deserving. If you know a veteran who is challenged transportation-wise, I have bus passes for veterans who need to get around who don't have a driver's license for whatever reason or physically aren't able to operate a vehicle. Those bus passes can be, they're given on a monthly basis, but as long as you abide our rules, I've had guys who have had bus passes for 2 or 3 years in a row. We support a couple of local DAV chapters, and we do a grant in aid program. Funny thing, you guys have all heard me bitch about things. I'm good at it. I don't know why we have to pay for water. What the hell good is government that doesn't provide water? But you'd be amazed how many veterans come to me because they need help with a PG&E bill or a past due water bill. It's ridiculous. But at any rate, I cough up somewhere between $600 and $1,000 on a regular basis for those items. But sometimes people will come, a local big box store told us, or told my veteran that he was only going to be able to work 32 hours a week because they don't want to pay for his health insurance. And he came to me, he said, I can't get to work in Tracy unless I have a set of tires. Well, I'm proud to say he got a set of tires. He got a washer and dryer too. But the whole point of what we do is I evaluate every client to ascertain their eligibility. It's a damn shame, but the military doesn't do a very good job. The reason you guys have a veteran service office is because the VA doesn't do a very good job either. So I try and evaluate every client that comes to us for eligibility for benefits, and then I guide them to somebody who can physically help them get what they're entitled to. What can I say? DAV Charities is about as honorable and as invisible as any other charitable outfit in San Joaquin County, and I thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Bob.
You're not aware of the fact that there are some 32,000 veterans in our county. And that means that sometimes some of those folks need a helping hand. That's why we're here. That's why we exist, to be able to help in those moments. Life brings those moments all the time. I'd also like to ask Mr. Michael Emerson to come up once again and talk about the DAV, which is separate from the DAV Charities of San Joaquin County.
Thank you, Captain. Yeah, I'm lucky enough to be the commander of two different veterans groups here in in our city, and so I wear two different hats. As you can tell, I wore the DAV hat last time. It was AMVETS the other time. But once again, our organization for the DAV has actually been here in Stockton since June 12th of 1922. We just had our 100-year anniversary here in Stockton, one of the oldest DAVs in the state and in the country. So the DAV, of course, specializes in helping disabled veterans. And if you want to become a member, you need to be a disabled veteran, honorably discharged. But what we do is, as a DAV, is we make sure that veterans that need to join the VA or have some other medical issue, that we help them to get through the paperwork and do the paperwork. The DAV, really, the organization, which is a national organization, just like AMVETS is also national, the DAV's specialty is helping disabled veterans. It's right in the name. And so that's one of the things that we try to do here in town. And they're also participating in the event on Sunday, the same commander, so it's kind of like an easy thing to do. But again, any veteran that's here, any veteran that you know, please have them reach out to us. We will help them any way that we can. And we're honored to be part of this city, and we appreciate any support that you guys give us. And again, I honor all of my brother and sister veterans that are here today and all the families, because that's one thing that people forget, is that families that support these veterans, they go through a lot of this. They miss them when they're overseas. There's Gold Star, Blue Star. We have Blue Star families here. I'd like to ask, do we have any Blue Star families? If you would, please stand. And do we have any Gold Star families here today? Stand. Thank you very much for your family sacrifice. Thank you again.
Thank you.
I would like to invite at this time our Gold Star parent, Mike Anderson. We'll also talk a little bit about a ministry or organization he's helped develop, Helping Hands.
Well, I was unaware that I was on today's agenda, but Chairman, Vice Chair, Board, Jay, thanks for having me. Chuck, thanks for introducing me. As a Gold Star father, I have been engaged in many things since the loss of my son in 2004. I chair a organization, a 501(c) in very good standing called Welcome Home Heroes Foundation out of Tracy, California. Supervisor Rickman has had a very heavy hand in assisting us in some of the events we've done out there, as has Supervisor Patty. We do many of the same things that the other veterans groups do. We help veterans in need. And we've done everything from repair cars to repair homes, washers, dryers, the list, it goes on. We had a veteran family in need last week that we assisted. I also chair, by committee, elected committee, the California Gold Star Memorial Monument. That was mentioned earlier. We are the first of its kind to go on VA property. This is going to be in French Camp at the new CBOC, the new mega clinic that's going out there. We're going to be right out in front. We've already got all the plans. We've got all the approvals. Everything is moving forward. We're going to be right up front where the flagpole is, the little island out there where people drive through to drop off or to pick up whatever. You cannot miss it. It's going to be right there in front. It's going to be surrounded by memorial bricks, as most of you are fully aware of. So with that, as a Gold Star father, I cannot walk in my son's shoes, but I can step in his footprints. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. And for our final presentation today, I'd like to invite Mr. Jerry McKay, President of the Stockton-San Joaquin Valley Chapter of the Tuskegee Airmen.
Morning. Thank you. Thank you for the privilege to stand before you. Mike, thank you very much for the sacrifice. Thank you so much. Yes, I am the president of Tuskegee Airmen. We are a fairly new organization here in town. Obviously, Tuskegee Airmen been in existence for over 50 years, recognizing and honoring Tuskegee Airmen, men and women, in the about 50 years. And what they were doing, they were the first organization, part of this American history, about what they are able to accomplish. They were the first organization, all African American, to fly, support during difficult times when he or she was not able to do those things. And so because of that, we are, for locally, Tuskegee Airmen, what we're doing, our focus is working with kids, young people, age ranging from 12 to 17, and then from 18 to 25, under the same mind and heart that Tuskegee Airmen had to do things that are impossible. Primarily what we're doing, we're introducing aviation to our kids here, primarily in Stockton. Based upon what's going on in this city, and some great resources, airports around us, and opportunity to prepare them for jobs and to move forward what kids have. We have a program, incident, forgive me, it is a 501(c) organization in good standing, and primarily what we're doing is a STEM program introducing kids to aviation. Also, what we do, we work with the police departments nowadays, because what's happening in aviation, one part of it is what's going on with drones. In fact, to give an example, this weekend, we're conducting the class, actually working with the police department for, bear with me, with the city of Tracy. We've been doing that the last Saturday, working with the police department, explaining kids about drones, and also about how they can utilize these gifts and these trains to get jobs, high-paying jobs. And so that's primarily what we're doing. Also what we're doing, we're helping veterans in need. Our program, what we're doing, we're giving away necessary things here in town, but unfortunately, primarily, what we're doing, working with our kids. And so if anyone, first of all, I'd like to meet with you guys and be a part of the things that you guys doing, and to come to your meetings and be a part of that. Also, I want you to be aware of what we're doing with our kids here in town. So thank you so much, and look forward to working with you in the very near future. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Chuck Roots. I spent 9 years in the Marine Corps, 25 in the Navy. It is my privilege and honor to have served, as I know everyone else here would say the same. My position currently is I am the chairman of the Veterans Advisory Commission, which the Supervisors commissioned a few years ago. There are 5 districts, as you know, and 1 commissioner from each of the districts. And we meet and we discuss the various organizations that you've just heard from, and others, and try to connect with them so that they connect with the city and the county to know what's going on in the lives of our veterans and their families. So some of the stuff you may have heard seems to be repetitive. part of what we're trying to do is centralize things so that we're not overlapping necessarily, or that we're not having gaps where they currently are. So bear with us. The commission is in full swing. We've just appointed going to be appointing 2 new commissioners, and we're delighted about that. We needed that. We were down to 3 of us. And we're going to be working with Susan, and I got to tell you, Susan Ferry is a tireless worker on behalf of the veterans in her position as the VSO. And I'm proud to serve with her. And you're in good hands, folks. I just want you to know that, with her at the helm. And thank you for allowing us to share with you today. And I'll turn it back over to our supervisors.
Thank you, Chuck. Appreciate that. And Chuck does a fantastic job, not only for the Veterans Advisory Commission, but I don't know how many hats you wear, but your closet must be the size of a house. So again, thank you for all that you do. Right now, I'd like to at least acknowledge for in our audience. I know, unfortunately, because of the weather, I know we don't have quite as few veterans as normal. But if I could have the post commanders please stand so we can recognize your leadership. Great. And now if we could have the veterans who are county employees, if you could stand so we can recognize you. And now I ask that all veterans would please stand so we can thank you for your service. Thank you very much. Now we have an opportunity to recognize each supervisor, one individual veteran. And the purpose of this is not so much that we're recognizing them as individuals. We're recognizing them as a member of the veteran population we have in San Joaquin County. And we've all had the opportunity to select an individual, special person to represent our district. And so with that, I will first turn it over to Supervisor Villaputa for his recognition.
Thank you very much. Can I please have Chris Johnson come to the podium? Good afternoon, everyone. Chuck, thank you for presenting all the speakers, and to all veterans, I tell you how much I appreciate everything you've done for our country, support especially the families and supporting their veterans overseas. Today's veteran that I'm honoring is a good friend of mine. His name is Chris Johnson. He was in the United States Air Force. He was a sergeant, and he served 6 years. Chris joined the Air Force right out of high school in 1986. He was trained as a medic at Shepherd Air Force Base in Wichita Falls, Texas. Chris served with the Strategic Air Command at F.E. Warren AFB in Cheyenne, Wyoming. He later transitioned to the U.S. Air Force Reserves, where he received training as a flight medic. In 1991, Chris was called on to return to active duty status in support of Operation Desert Storm. He served as a flight medic in Saudi Arabia, along with his unit in the 65th Aeromedical Evacuation Squadron, where they stabilized and cared for critically injured soldiers, Marines, and airmen prior to and during long-range transport back into Europe. Because of his heroic duties, Chris received several accommodations for his bravery. In 2020, he retired from a 26-year career in law enforcement as a state parole agent, including 6 years on the U.S. Marshals Pacific Southwest Regional Fugitive Task Force. Chris thrived in his role as a fugitive hunter and public servant. Believing strongly in his mission, Chris served multiple years on the board of Bread of Life. In January 2022, he assumed the role as executive director. I've worked with Chris now for less than a year. and I can tell you that he does an amazing job for the Bread of Life and for our community. I've called upon Chris to help serve needless families in my district, and I've called him all hours of the night, even on weekends. This man steps up. Chris, I want to thank you for serving our country and serving San Joaquin County especially. You've just been amazing. I truly value our friendship, and can't thank you enough for coming today. And let me say a few words about you. So thank you, all veterans today. Chris, I want to let you say a few words, please.
Going into the Air Force, not knowing exactly what I wanted to do when I got out of high school, but knowing that I wanted my family to be proud, I chose to enter the Air Force, and that experience laid a foundation of servanthood in my life, so valuable for the remainder of my life in getting a nursing license following that, going into my career in law enforcement, and then ultimately landing serving people once again through Bread of Life. It's been an honor. Like they said, I'm only a small representation of the valiant soldiers and airmen and Marines and seamen that we served in this county, and I just followed in the footsteps of you men and you women that served before me, and I'm proud to have stood beside you in my time in the military. Thank you to Chairman Wynn, Vice Chair Rickman, Board of Supervisors, Mr. Wilverding, and my good friend Miguel Villapudua for having me today, and let me say a little bit about veterans. You guys, I appreciate you doing this for everyone.
Supervisor Miller.
Thank you, Chair, and I would like to ask Eliza Garza to meet me down. This is really special for me. I began my career in elected office with the City of Stockton, and the veteran that I am able to and honored to recognize today, Eliza Garza, is the City Clerk for the City of Stockton. So this feels like a really meaningful closing of the circle for me. Ms. Garza first answered the call to public service in 2006 when she enlisted in the United States Marine Corps. While enlisted, Ms. Garza supported Operation Iraqi Freedom and was deployed to Iraq, Kuwait, and Japan. While in the arena of the Al-Anbar province of Iraq, Ms. Garza was selected to participate in the Lioness program and attached to a Marine Corps infantry unit for the purposes of providing security at local Iraqi police stations and participating in safety patrols in local townships. During her tenure, Ms. Garza worked in the logistics field and held a secondary duty as a certified Marine Corps martial arts program instructor. Ms. Garza has received a Good Conduct ribbon for her service and a certificate of commendation for exemplary professionalism while deployed. Ms. Garza has been affiliated with the City of Stockton since 2012, beginning her journey as an administrative intern in the office of the City Clerk, which is where I first met her. Ms. Garza has been a member of the International Institute of Municipal Clerks and City Clerks Association of California since 2014. She received her certified municipal clerk designation in 2017, and in May of 2019, she was appointed by the Stockton City Council to the position of City Clerk. She is one of the 3 charter officers in her agency. Her professional duties include budget and policy development, municipal election management, and city council administration. Ms. Garza received her Bachelor of Science in Management from the University of Phoenix in 2019. And in her free time, she can be found on the sidelines of her children's youth sporting events, motivating them as they motivate her in all her daily activities. I'm going to see if maybe Ms. Garza would like to say a few words.
Thank you so much, Supervisor Miller. This recognition is extremely heartfelt and important to me because, as Ms. Miller has stated, I began my tenure under her guidance, so it was really motivating to see another female leading the charge. So thank you very much. Commander Emerson, thank you so much for the nomination to be recognized here. I am just so overwhelmed with gratitude. I answered to the call to service when I was 21, and I did it because I felt like I was called to do something and be a part of something greater than myself. So I did it, and never in a million years would I expect any type of recognition. So thank you. Being a female in a male-dominated society, it's no easy feat. So if anything, I hope that some little girl can look to this as an exemplar of, just it can be done. So thank you, and thank you all for the support. Thanks.
And we want to thank you for your service, and also all the other veterans that are here today and the other veterans in San Joaquin County. We're truly grateful.
Supervisor Patty.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll speak down there. Down and address the crowd here. Regretfully and sadly, my recipient was administered to the hospital yesterday, but I'm certain his spirit is strong and he'll recover. So I'm going to read a tribute and a great example of dedication and service above self. People who serve in the military, they have this great distinction of stepping up in honor of this great country, the freedom, the Constitution, that flag and liberty and justice for all. And you do your time. Sometimes people do it a career, and they do a short stay. My father was in during the Korean War and saw no combat. He was in the Navy Air Corps and traveled around the world. But he served his country for 4 years and came away as a man, going in as a young boy, perhaps at 18, if you will. And that left an indelible impression in his life. And it gave a lot of, I think, a strong foundation to build a life off of from things that he had accomplished, as many of you all know. So Willie Weatherford is the person who I've recognized as my veteran this year. And actually, I had a couple of other veterans that were close to 100 years old, World War II veterans, and they declined. They didn't want any recognition at all. And they served their country proudly during World War II. So we respect that. But I have to admire, the reason why I'm talking, I chose Willie Weatherford as an example that each and every one of you veterans that are often in your posts, and you've talked about your engagement and what you're still doing. You had service to this great nation. And then you came back and you still serve not only each other as veterans, but you still serve this nation, this country, this state, this city, this community. And we appreciate that. I'm going to give an example of a person that's done exactly the same thing. Willie Weatherford, his community service record spans nearly 4 decades. Willie's a retired Manteca police chief and was elected to the Manteca City Council in 1996. Willie served on the Manteca City Council for 18 years, including 12 years as mayor. He's the longest-serving mayor in Manteca's history. Willie regularly went to bat for youth programs and recreational sports, and as a police officer and as a council member. He was one of the founders of the Manteca Boys and Girls Club and is involved in the Manteca Noon Kiwanis, Manteca Prayer Breakfast, youth sporting organizations, and such activities as serving the Manteca Manor Senior Housing Board. The 1961 Galt High graduate enlisted in the United States Air Force, where he started his law enforcement career in the Air Police Security Forces. While stationed in Kansas, he met Sherilyn Alwyn. The two married in May 7, 1963, and he was discharged from the military in 1965 after 4 years of service. The following year, he was hired in Manteca as a rookie police officer and rose to the ranks of captain by 1978. In 1983, Weatherford was selected as Galt's police chief. The following year, he took over as the city manager. During his tenure, Galt annexed 1,700 acres, helped establish a Boys and Girls Club and a softball complex. Weatherford returned to Manteca in 1987 as police chief and held that position until his retirement in 1996. On June 22, 2022, former Mayor Willie Weatherford was honored with a park dedication ceremony named Willie Weatherford's Park. So we all do pray for his speedy recovery and that he gets well. I know at some point he'll be watching this, whether it be recorded or perhaps live. But Willie, thank you for being my honoree. You honor this community, and we thank and appreciate you. Thank you all.
Vice Chair Rickman.
All right, thank you. First of all, thank you everybody for being here. It is truly an honor just to be in the same room with all of you. First of all, I want to say thank you to our veterans. You know, we have a debt that we can never repay, but what we can do is to remember, honor, and say thank you to all of you. It is an honor in my position to represent the veterans in our county. And we can say thank you in many different ways. You know, we must keep pressing the VA to complete the French Camp VA facility, the CBOC. We did see Victory Garden through, which is now operational, and we will continue to look for more ways to assist and honor all of you. As we get ready to commemorate Veterans Day later this week, I want to wish all the Marines happy birthday, 247th birthday. And today I have the honor to recognize a special veteran from the 5th District, a good friend of mine who I've known since, you know, I was in high school. Him and his daughter and I went to school together. Our First Sergeant, Vaughn Gates. Vaughn, can you please? Now, Vaughn was born in Portland, Oregon, October 28th, 1946. So happy belated birthday. I got a donut in the back for you. Commander Gates and graduated high school in Canoga Park, California. He was drafted in the United States Army in 1966 and concluded his obligation in 1970. From 1966 to 1968, he served in Vietnam with the 2nd Battalion, 7th Regiment, 1st Cavalry Division, Air Mobile, and earned the Combat Infantry Badge, Air Medal, and Army Commendation Medal for participation in helicopter aerial assaults during search and destroy missions. In 1972, Vaughn became a California High Patrol officer and served in South LA, Hayward, Stockton, and the CHP Academy in Sacramento. I trained you, I remember. Not just joking. His last CHP assignment was in the Impaired Driving Unit training law enforcement officers on the NHTSA Drug Recognition Expert Program. And, you know, Vaughn, I know you taught me when I was a DRE. And another side note, and during the DRE program, he still continues it to this day, but he has the most drug arrests, not just in San Joaquin County or the state of California, but the United States of America. Yeah, does that still stand? Yes. It still stands. So very, very impressive. And I still call him once in a while, hey man, I won't get into the police work stuff, but I still use his knowledge. The DRE program trains officers on the detection of drivers under the influence of drugs to remove impaired drivers from our roadways. In 2001, Vaughn was the recipient of the National IACP Outstanding DRE Program Award. In 2005, Vaughn retired after 33 years of service with the California Highway Patrol. In 1986, Vaughn joined the United States Air Force Reserve 940 Security Forces Squadron in Beale Air Force Base. He was placed on active duty during Desert Storm and 9/11 and earned the Meritorious Service Medal, Noble Eagle, and Global War on Terrorism medals. Sergeant Gates used knowledge and experience gained from the CHP training to provide alcohol and drug detection, training to active duty and reserve security force members, which led to reducing on-base DUI-related accidents and incidents. Senior Master Sergeant Vaughn was the recipient of the 2003 Annual National Government Employees Insurance Company Military Service Award. In 2006, after 24 years of combined military service, Vaughn retired with the rank of E8, First Sergeant, and was discharged at Beale Air Force Base. Vaughn became a resident of Tracy in 1979 and has continued a legacy of service. He is the commander of the Tracy James McDermott American Legion Post 172 and the District 11 commander overseeing 11 Legion posts. He was the 13th district commander of the VFW from 2013 to 2015, overseeing 22 VFW posts, and commander of the Tracy VFW Post 1537 for 10 years. Vaughn has served in a variety of officer positions in the VFW and the American Legion at the post, district, and state levels. He is a trained service officer who helps veterans file for benefits from the Veteran Affairs. Annually, he coordinates with the VA Rural Health Mobile Medical Outreach Clinic team to come to local posts and assist veterans in getting VA health care. Vaughn is a VFW Military Order of the Cootie member, Pit Stop Pup Tent 68. Vaughn and a group of fellow Cooties travel monthly to spend an entire day at the Livermore Veterans Administration Hospital, bringing enjoyment to the veterans by bringing food, playing games like bingo, and maybe most importantly, simply giving his time to visit and talk. Vaughn also regularly visits veterans in VA hospitals at Yountville and Palo Alto for events and barbecues. He also helps coordinate the Christmas gift distribution to veterans in these hospitals, where thousands of dollars of gifts are handed out, which is appreciated by our hospitalized veterans and the staff. Further, Vaughn is a member of the Tracy Military Honor Guard, providing final military honors to departed veterans at their burials at the Tracy Public Cemetery and San Joaquin County Valley National Cemetery. In addition to all aforementioned, Vaughn is a member of the Disabled American Veterans Chapter 73, Tracy Elks Lodge 2031, Tracy Breakfast Lions, and the Tracy Moose Lodge. Vaughn is a widower who has been a Tracy resident, as I mentioned before, since '79. He has 3 grown children, 7 grandchildren from 6 to 26 years of age, and a great-granddaughter. You are one of the busiest men I know. It is my honor, my sincere honor, to recognize First Sergeant Vaughn Gates. I want to thank you for your service to our nation and our continued service to this community, and thank you for being a good friend. Thank you.
I'm old, that's all. Been around a long time. Every time I try to retire, somebody comes up and says, would you help us with this? And I just can't say no to veterans. You can see a lot of veteran organizations out here, but we're not in competition. We actually serve together and we actually basically just have a preference of what organization we're part of. And I just want to thank Bob Rickman and basically all the county supervisors for our support over years. Always been supportive of veterans the entire time, and we need support. We need help all the time. We have a lot of veterans in need out there, and we're just trying to provide the need that they need to have to get on their feet and get a hand up.
Thank you, Ron.
Well, first I want to say it's an honor and a privilege to be here recognizing veterans, and not just the veterans in this room, but veterans throughout San Joaquin County. We retired the same year from CHP, but I started 4 years earlier, and I worked in West LA, just north of 6649. I know, I'm an old guy. I get it. Okay, got it. A couple things I'd like to say in regards to veterans. We've heard some great stories and accomplishments made by veterans, and we do this every year, and this is my 8th year of doing this. And I guess, you know, the thing is, in looking back at my service with the Marines, is that it's a life-changing experience to go in the military. I was 19 years old when I went, and I only bring that up because my experience in listening to all the experiences of veterans, not only this year but the previous years, and then having the opportunity to teach college for 9 years and have veterans attend college, and they excelled because they were in an environment that was disciplined, and they were challenged, and they accomplished great things. And the thing that strikes me the most is it isn't so much, which is important, it isn't so much the service that you render to your country. It's what you did with your lives, both during and after your service, and the things that you did which made you very special in our community in regards to your accomplishments. And in my particular case, with my selection of Elwood Cooper, having spent time with he and Patricia, Elwood is probably one of the most accomplished individuals I've ever met. And I say that because it wasn't just your time in the Army. It's what you've done in the community as a farmer. You worked back as a carpenter and in the railroad, things that you did. But it was sitting down with you and Patricia. And I know your grandson Ty is here. But if there was ever a perfect family, a perfect couple, you two are it. And I say that because not only because of your experiences, not only when you met her, how you ended up being married, certainly your time in the Army, but just the things that you've done. And being a farmer, certainly in this county, you're the salt of the earth. So I'll read some of the biography of Elwood, and it goes on, and a lot of it deals with Patricia and Elwood and how you eventually got together. And by the way, Elwood just celebrated his 88th birthday last week. So Elwood was born in DeWitt, Arkansas, on November 3rd, 1934, and had a desire to go in the Army because of his brother, though, and his father. He decided that maybe wouldn't be the choice at that time. So he came from Arkansas to California to stay with an uncle, and long story short, he ended up, as opposed to being a carpenter, which he had planned to do, ended up working for the railroad. And eventually, he was drafted into the Army. In 1957, he received his draft notice welcoming him into the Army. His basic training was at Fort Ord, California. It was here that he volunteered for the Airborne Division. Training for the Airborne was conducted at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, where he went through arduous jump school. He was then assigned to the 101st Airborne 506th Company E, known as the Band of Soldiers, Band of Brothers, which I'm sure you're all familiar with. This vaunted unit was disbanded at the end of World War II, but they were recently been reinstated. Part of their training required that they watch film and see pictures of the unit fighting in Germany in the Battle of the Bulge. It was then that he realized that they were standing on the shoulders of heroes. They trained hard and were always ready to go should their nation need them. Their division commander at that time was Major General William Westmoreland, a man they admired and loved. On one occasion, they were doing a training jump when high winds came up. Several of the men lost their lives that day. The group Elwood was to jump was held back from jumping. General Westmoreland said he would jump next to see if the jump was safe to continue. Once he was on the ground, he called off the entire jump. And actually, they knew that by his action, possibly their lives were saved. In November of 1958, he received recognition as one of the outstanding field soldiers of the 101st Airborne Division. He was then interviewed to become the driver for General Westmoreland. At the same time, he was asked to go regular Army. At that time, he was a reservist. But due to his early career with the railroad and a certain girl who had caught his eye, he decided not to accept transfer into the regular Army. So the rest is history. They farm almonds in just outside east of Manteca. Blondie, her son, and Ty are in the Army. And as I said earlier, and I apologize, but you couldn't ask for a nicer couple. And you couldn't ask for a nicer person to represent not only the Army, but veterans in San Joaquin County. So I want to congratulate you certainly for your service, but more importantly for your life and your family and what you've been able to do on this earth for the last 88 years. So would you like to say a word?
And I thank you very much for the honor that you've given veterans today. And I do love my country. And I've always strived to make a better place for whoever would follow. And my family is here today. My wife, Patricia, the greatest wife a man ever had. And also also my daughter, Patricia Burgess, and my grandson, Ty. And I thank you, Mr. Chairman, for your office. He got here and made it. He flew in today. He didn't come for the ceremony. He just came to visit. But it all happened, and you helped make it happen. Your office did to get him here, and everything went good. And I thank you for that. And I thank you again for the honor that you gave to veterans today. Thank you very much.
And by the way, after the ceremony is over, if all the honorees could come down and get a picture with the Board of Supervisors, we'd appreciate it. Now I'd ask Chaplain Roots to do the benediction, please. Please rise.
Lord, thank you. We've been blessed this day. Stories, the lives represented, those who have gone before to secure our liberties and our freedoms. And Lord, that fight never stops. We need to have generations come behind us that will continue to serve this nation. Why? Because it's worth serving. Thank you, Lord, for your blessing. We are a free people. We are the envy of the world. And we also are a nation that loves to share that freedom so that all might experience that. So, Lord, as we go from this place this day, we simply want to say thank you. Thank you for allowing us to be Americans in this time in history. In Jesus' name.
So thank you all. We close the ceremony, and again, if those honorees would come down, so we get a picture with the board. Appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, reconvene the San Joaquin County Board of Supervisors meeting. And leading off with Mr. Dieterich and VSO in regards to a presentation in regards to the future of the VSO office.
Good afternoon, Chairman Nguyen, members of the Board of Supervisors, CEO Wilverding, and to our veterans in attendance today. It is my honor as the Healthcare Services Agency Director to be able to present to you today, along with Susan Verity, our County Veteran Service Officer, an update on the Veteran Service Office and to address concerns that have been voiced regarding our service capacity, staffing levels, the current location of our office, and opportunities for improving the quality of the services we provide to our veterans community, to whom we all owe a debt of gratitude for their sacrifice in securing the freedoms and the liberties we all cherish as citizens of the United States of America. Today's updates are in follow-up to substantial and detailed written updates I provided to each supervisor's office on July 8th and October 14th of this year. And at the end of the presentation, we will make several recommendations, be available for questions and public comment, and to accept input and direction from this board. Our prior County Veteran Service Officer, Virginia Wimmer, vacated in October of last year to take a position with the state of California, and I assigned our former Healthcare Services Chief Information Officer, Don Johnston, to act in an interim part-time capacity until he retired from the county's service in March, and at that same time when Susan Ferry was appointed as our new County Veteran Service Officer. Last October, we effectively had less than 3.5 FTEs working in the Veteran Service Office, with only one accredited Veteran Service representative, a part-time VSR, interim or borrowed staffing from other areas of healthcare services, and only one member of the Veteran Service Office being in place longer than 6 months. Field positions have improved considerably since this time last year, but we are not nearly where they need to be to provide the service levels required. I will point out that as part of our 2022 final budget, I requested, and this board approved, adding a net new full-time Veteran Service Representative position. We also have had added non-allocated part-time positions to help increase staffing capacity, but have faced various recruitment and retention challenges that I will discuss on the next slide. Additionally, we also experienced several COVID outbreaks in the office since the beginning of the pandemic, and this has resulted in staff being off work or, when possible, working outside the office, including some times when the office had to be physically closed due to not having any available staff. The office continues to primarily operate on a scheduled appointment basis, but we do accommodate walk-in clients in order to address any urgent needs or handle issues that can be immediately resolved. But as many cases require well in excess of a 1-hour appointment and potentially a need for the client to return with additional supporting documentation, it has been determined that while we are still with limited staffing, we're more efficient to maintain an appointment schedule, and we do have appointments within the next few weeks. It is important to note that our goal is to submit a fully developed claim to and to have claims approved upon first submission to the Department of Veterans Affairs. The disservice to our veterans to submit a claim that will most likely be rejected due to a lack of required documentation, wait several months for such denial, and then have to rework the claim with the veteran. As demonstrated by our CalVet reports issued in September, we have substantially increased the workload units performed in the office from the first half of fiscal year 21-22 to the second half. I'm also pleased that I have an update on this slide. One of our full-time VSRs just has recently become accredited as well. When we perform an open recruitment to develop a hiring list for the Veteran Service Representative classification, we commonly hear from veterans who have applied that they were screened out as they did not meet the classification's minimum requirements and are thus not able to test or interview for an open position. This is due to specific language in the VSR1 classification with the requirement the applicant have prior benefits experience. This has been interpreted to mean in a paid position and generally for government-sponsored benefits like unemployment or Medi-Cal. Healthcare Services recently submitted to Human Resources a classification study request to look at an alternative qualification pathway, including experience in non-paid positions, or as we will provide the required training for state and national accreditation to simply have experience working with veterans in a less formal capacities. We're working to bring revisions of the VSR1 classification specification to the Civil Service Commission in December. We were also recently met with Human Resources to review the screening test that is administered prior to applicants potentially being interviewed and ranked, as this test currently consists of 100 questions, many of which require detailed knowledge of VA benefits and their history. And we believe that in the current employment environment, the screening exam needs to be significantly revised and not be a potential barrier for skilled applicants. We also hope that these two changes will significantly increase the pool of eligible applicants referred for interviews, as the most recent recruitment resulted in only 4 certified names. Human Resources has also agreed to add the Veteran Service Representative classifications to the list of hard-to-recruit positions as approved by this board on September 13th. As the VSR2 classification requires candidates to have completed a course of instructions in veterans benefits as prescribed by Title 38 of the Code of Federal Regulations and be accredited by the State of Department of Veterans Affairs as a service organization representative, we rarely ever have applicants who qualify at the 2 level. However, those that are hired at the 1 level and with the county providing the required training, after 1 year of experience and the required accreditation, the employee will automatically promote from the VSR1 to the VSR2 level. The accreditation process commonly takes up to 18 months with both state and national course requirements, many of which have prerequisites and where certain courses are only offered a few times a year. This results in a substantial amount of time out of the office for training, during which time the staff are not available to provide client-facing services. These challenges are compounded by our non-competitive wage scales for these classifications, and prior to the recently approved SEIU 6% wage increase, the VSR1 started at $19.03 an hour, and the VSR2 topped out at $27.30 an hour. Human Resources conducted a compensation survey for the Veteran Service Representative 1 and 2 classifications, and even after the recent SEIU salary adjustments, we are considerably behind in both salary and total compensation for both these classifications, and only 1 of the 10 comparator counties paid less than San Joaquin, and just barely. Due to a recent enacted federal legislation, there will be a substantially increased demand for accredited VSRs working in both local county veteran service office as well as in the Department of Veterans Affairs systems. And we need to be able to retain the staff that we hire and train and who become accredited rather than lose these staff to other agencies. The VA is actively recruiting on the order of tens of thousands of these positions due to the recent passage of the PACT Act. I firmly agree that we need to, there's a need to, an opportunity to expand our communication from the Veteran Service Office with our veterans and in the county that we serve. During a conference call with concerned veterans in late September, there was a request for the VSO to create a monthly newsletter and to physically mail that to 32,000 veterans in San Joaquin County, and that was an item I did decline to commit to for various reasons. Currently, the entire annual services and supplies budget for the Veteran Service Office is $179,000, and it was estimated the cost of the above request would exceed that entire amount. Additionally, we do not have confirmed mailing addresses for the vast majority of the referenced 32,000 veterans, nor a compliance source to leverage that contact information for the suggested purpose. I did, however, commit to increased communications via our website and directly emailing updates, other messaging, including creating a quarterly newsletter and sending out to as many veterans as we can, and to make every effort to significantly expand that distribution, including requests to have these items posted at the physical locations of the various veterans organizations within the county and for them to share directly with their membership. We will also look to see how the Veteran Service Office can potentially host virtual town halls with our veterans community. However, all this needs to be balanced with increasing our direct services to veterans on benefits claims and the near-term constraints we have with staffing capacity. The County Veteran Service Office has been located at 105 South San Joaquin Street in Stockton for more than 20 years. The location lacks dedicated or convenient parking for our clients, has limited bus service, and there has been concerns voiced about the security in the general downtown Stockton area. In the past several years, we've digitized our records, which has allowed us to then remove dozens of file cabinets in the office and reconfigure the office layout, purchase new cubicles and furniture, as well as have made other improvements to the office, including painting and various other improvements. It is not, however, an ideal location for our veterans, and we've made several attempts to relocate the office during my tenure as a Healthcare Services Agency Director, including considering moving to a larger space with dedicated parking at 420 Wilson Way, which was being freed up when the California Children's Services Division of Public Health moved into leased space in late 2016. But ultimately, there were concerns raised by veterans that it wasn't going to be much of an overall improvement, and their desire was to be located in French Camp near the new VA community-based outpatient clinics. 8+ years ago, there was some informal discussions with VA Palo Alto Healthcare Services, actually several Palo Alto directors ago, with having a VSO presence in their to-be-built CBOC, but these discussions never became formalized as part of the final design of that facility, which should finally come online mid-next year. In calendar 2018, Healthcare Services was engaged in master space planning efforts, which were centered around a public health replacement facility project at Hazelton and Wilson Way. And the initial design was for a 3-story facility that would accommodate not only all of public health, but also consolidate Healthcare Services Administration, Finance, and Human Resources, as well as provide needed space for emergency medical services and the Veterans Service Office. However, it was determined by the prior county administrator that this larger project could not be funded, and we pivoted toward a significantly smaller project, which we had a ribbon cutting and dedication ceremony for 2 weeks ago. We also have looked at the potential to relocate into some of the VA trailers adjacent to their leased clinic space on Matthews Road, adjacent to San Joaquin General Hospital, when that lease terminates. But we're now understand that the VA desires to maintain that occupancy even after the CBOC comes online. There's also ground level shell space available for the VSO at 601 North Hunter Street in Stockton, which is part of the Anchor Village apartment complex, which provides supportive, affordable housing for veterans and those at risk of homelessness with special needs. And we would only have to fund the tenant improvements and pay a proportionate share of common area maintenance for rent. However, there would be no staff parking or client parking other than what was available on the street, which is metered. And we've looked at this opportunity more than once, but again, it's not in the ideal desired French Camp location. One of our near-term opportunities to improve services once we staff all of our positions is to increase veterans' access in the community and establish standing weekday services in outlying cities and in partnership with our various veterans organizations and their facilities, and as also with municipalities. So as to lower travel burdens for many veterans who might now have to come to the Stockton office. There may also be opportunities to have a satellite office presence at Delta Community College. There's been some informal discussions initiated by members of the Carl Ross Post and a Delta trustee. I've asked that our VSO be brought into these discussions and that they include other Delta leaderships, and a meeting is now scheduled for November 17th. However, I'm not sure if the space would be in kind or what tenant improvements or rent would have to negotiate. And there would be maybe issues to address with wayfinding, as well as parking may not be all that convenient. As I mentioned above, our goal, and one I believe shared with many of the veterans in the community, is that our primary veteran service office be located in French Camp near the CBOC. And we've been working with the Housing Authority as a potential in the design of the second phase of Victor Gardens to have space developed there for a new VSO office. And Healthcare Services, along with General Services, will be bringing a board item later this month that will move the second phase of the residential units forward and allows for an option for Housing Authority to facilitate the construction of modular units to house a new VSO office. Ultimately, we would need to one-time general fund support for this option. However, given the type of construction, we're hoping that the cost would come into under $300 per square foot, and that's a total ask of approximately $1 million. But obviously, a considerable amount of pre-development work still needs to be accomplished, and board approval is obtained. But we have the potential for a new VSO facility in French Camp within the next 24 months. At the December 5th, 2017 board meeting, the board directed County Counsel and Veteran Service Officer to develop recommendations regarding the formation of a Veterans Advisory, or pardon me, a Commission on Veterans Affairs to work in conjunction with the Veteran Service Office and to provide a forum for various representatives working with our county veterans. The former Veteran Service Officer and I enlisted the support of several veterans and community stakeholders to serve as planning advisors and supporters. Stakeholders were representative of faith-based, community-based, nonprofit organizations, non-governmental, and governmental agencies. The planning initiatives took place over several meetings between June and September of 2018, and through the efforts and support of the stakeholders, which include Susan here, the Board of Supervisors established the San Joaquin County Veterans Advisory Commission on November 6, 2018. Per the Commission's bylaws, the purpose of the Veterans Advisory Commission is to provide an opportunity for veterans and veteran service providers to gather and share information, hold open public meetings, provide the public with information, and receive comments related to veterans issues, and to advise and make recommendations to the Board of Supervisors and the county staff on matters pertaining to veterans issues within San Joaquin County. Commissioners were recruited and appointed by the board in early 2019, and the first commission meeting was held that May. However, we've struggled to have all 7 commission seats filled, and due to COVID, there were months where no meetings were held, and then the ones that were held were in a virtual format, which limited participation. Meetings are now back to in-person and scheduled for the 4th Tuesday of each month, but at times we're unable to obtain quorum, and the commission chair and our VSO are working to recruit veterans to fill the open seats. And it's important that we are successful in revitalizing and leveraging the Veterans Advisory Commission, and for them to develop a strategic plan and make an annual presentation of the board as required by the commission's bylaws. One of the commission seats is a nominee representing VA Palo Alto Healthcare Services and is unfilled, and most of our veterans know San Joaquin County was realigned within the VA system effective October 1st of this year. It is now part of Northern California VA Health Systems. And we may need to look at a revision of the commission bylaws regarding this, as well as other language that might need to be addressed in the bylaws. Off title here. Apologies. Slide 7. No, my apologies. Our county veteran service officer, Susan Verity, has developed a 5-year strategic plan for her office. It's still in draft form and not yet finalized, but it's something that we will work collaboratively with the CEO's office on during this year's budget cycle. I wanted to have her share some of her vision with the board today, which includes further expanding staffing, training and accreditation, outreach to the and the potential to include clinic staffing within the office, and increased collaboration with our Veterans Treatment Court and other veteran stakeholders.
Okay. Good afternoon, Chairman Nguyen, members of the Board of Supervisors, County Administrator Wilverding, and a special welcome to all of those who are still here to listen to our presentation today. It's my privilege as the new County Veteran Service Officer to present to you our inaugural 5-year plan to address not only the current needs of our county veterans, but to secure their future needs as well. And as mentioned, we have the most significant changes going on nationally with the PACT Act that we've seen in the last 30 years. And we also have some of the most significant county changes we have with Northern California VA taking over for administratively Palo Alto Healthcare System. Those are very significant changes. And then we also have a lot of veteran housing coming on board, which is exciting. So as we know, one of the biggest challenges county managers are facing right now is the staffing shortage. Our department situation is compounded by the fact that for over a decade, we have been critically understaffed, having only 2 full-time accredited veteran service reps to serve over 32,000 veterans of San Joaquin County. Therefore, we will be working with the Board of Supervisors and HR to immediately begin remedying that by requesting the addition of several new positions during this year's budgeting cycle. We are appreciative that we were approved for a VSR 1 and 2 this budget cycle, and that gets us closer to the number of veteran service reps we had back in 2008 before the last Great Recession. Additionally, we want to continue to improve customer service and provide increased outreach. So we've already made several changes to improve our outreach to veterans. We've participated in over 30 outreach events during the past 5 months alone. We've certainly seen a lot of the supervisors out there at a lot of the events that we've been at. So that's been really enjoyable. Our county veterans website is currently under construction. Healthcare Services ISD is spearheading a project to completely revamp our site. Eventually, we hope clients will be able to book their own appointments online with their VSR of choice through a Microsoft booking program that the majority of other statewide VSOs already use. We'll be featuring educational YouTube videos and links to other resources as well. So we're looking at maybe some video productions to help with the education, and certainly really updating our site so that they can actually book online. We installed new phones 2 weeks ago and added new case managers direct extensions. So initially we would have one main line, someone would call in, would write a paper message, walk it down their office, tape it on their desk. As of last week, now everyone has a new phone with the additional 6 lines. Each case manager now has their own extension, which means now if someone needs to get a hold of their case manager, they can reach them directly instead of through the paper system we're using before. Lastly, our office owes the General Services Department a huge debt of gratitude. When I first arrived, I was stepping over with my crutch a lot of cables, and I was asking what that was about, and they said I would learn. And so what we learned is that the AC in the building hadn't worked adequately for over 10 years. So that was all the fans that were in there to help cool down the customers. All 4 rooftop HVAC units have now been replaced, and thus this long-term heated issue was finally cooled and completely addressed for the benefit of both staff and clients. Also, in order to increase communication and collaboration with our veteran organizations, to increase communication, we have already mentioned the increased outreach efforts already underway. We plan to install a big screen monitor to show veteran benefits information literally in the waiting room to families that are waiting while they wait for their appointments. We're engaging with the Carl Ross Post on a bi-monthly basis. We're working on creating a more user-friendly and educational website, and we'll begin hosting quarterly community town halls probably starting in about 2 months. And then we've also, Chuck Roots has been phenomenal in coming on board with the Veterans Advisory Commission as the chair. And so we have assisted with filling a couple vacant positions, and I think we're going to have 3 go before the board on November 29th. So that'll go a long way to supporting Chuck and what the Veterans Advisory Commission is trying to do. Okay. So currently with the Veterans Advisory Commission, Mr. Dan Burnell is seeking appointment for District 3. Mr. Stan Rapata is my representative for the VSO office. And then another individual is going to be seeking appointment to District 2, and that would leave the VA Palo Alto position and District 5 needing to be filled. And then as Mr. Dieterich mentioned, we're looking to potentially keep VA Palo Alto as one of the reps because veterans are still being served by that healthcare system, and we would amend the bylaws to add a Northern California position. And we've also, one change that's happened this year regarding the federal work study program is they required all sites to get recertified. Unfortunately, they had a huge contingency of federal employees that retired, and so that has slowed down the process. So we did apply over 3 months ago to be recertified, to be a recertified site for the VA work study program. All of our current accredited vet service reps were all formerly VA work study students. Therefore, the VA work study program becomes a great staff recruitment tool for us. We do get occasional updates that we are in the queue. However, we have been informed that the work study program dollars may have been reduced, so the wait is becoming longer. And then we're really looking at this year developing specific plans for capturing key data metrics. There are many metrics and data points we're required to capture for state and federal reporting. During my first budget cycle, I discovered approximately $21 million in underreported veteran benefits for our county. I wanted to thank the CAO's office for assisting me with updating several years' worth of incorrect budget reports. ISD has enrolled our department in a special projects pilot program, and this program has been invaluable to us for having spearheaded many of our new VSO technology projects. So year 2. So for year 2, we were looking at initiating design elements for the new Veteran Service Office in French Camp if that gets approved. As mentioned, we're engaging with the Director of the Housing Authority to relocate our entire CVSO office to the lower level of the new Victory Gardens 2 project. HCS will be bringing this item to the Board of Supervisors at a future meeting. And this year, we hope to complete the design elements and start the build in year 2. And of course, that would eliminate a lot of our challenges with accessibility, safety, and so forth. Also, during year 2, we will be looking at developing a senior level VSR 3 position. They will handle the complex federal appeals cases, work with myself to develop, implement a comprehensive staff veteran benefits training program, complete complex independent site visits. For instance, a lot of our veterans are now entering the hospice. And so we're looking at getting folks specialized in working with some of our seniors, and also what it looks like when you are working with someone who's living in a healthcare environment. And then, of course, that includes hospice care, residential and correctional facilities. And then they would also become a certified trainer for the assist and mental health first aid training. And then I think the rest is fairly self-explanatory. Sorry, I'm getting signals. It's been a little long. Someone needs to use the restroom. And then, let's see. Right, so just a pause on state, federal, and national accreditation, just so there's some understanding there. So in order to actually represent a veteran at a minimum, our folks have to have a state certification that takes about 18 months. In order to, for instance, we go to Carl Ross Post and we're working with another service organization like American Legion, that's a separate credential. That's the national credential, and they have to sign up for that. And then there's a federal credential in addition to that, where you have to get cleared through the federal Veterans Benefits, Veterans Healthcare, and National Cemetery. So this takes a long time to get people up to speed. That's why retention and recruitment is so key for us. We're also going to, we'll look at, with work study, we're hoping to get 2 to 3 positions. We're also looking at 5 outreach satellite offices, which will include the new VA clinic, the Liberty Square housing facility, Delta Community College, along with University of Pacific, and rotating through different senior living facilities and rural locations. We are going to begin searching for a veteran treatment, our veteran treatment court group treatment provider for veterans who are not yet eligible for VA healthcare. We want to create and conduct mandatory bi-monthly benefits education and counseling sessions for all those that are enrolled in the Veterans Treatment Court, and possibly we want to partner with our Veterans Readiness Employment partners as well. And then also during year 2, the new CBOC is going to open. That's the community-based outpatient clinic that's UCB in Belton and French Camp. There may be one office for all veteran service organizations to rotate through or share. I know Tina Wadami is working on getting us more than one, and that office will have the best opportunity to assist new veterans with benefits, and also it would involve state reimbursement with subvention funding. So we really want to have a strong presence in year 2 at the Stockton Community-Based Outpatient Clinic. Year 3, we're hoping to utilize one of the VSRs hired in year 1 to assist with social work type tasks, mental health, provide mental health resources, et cetera. So every day, as you know, there's so many veterans that need some type of social services support, mental health support, substance abuse support, and so forth. And as we expand our staff, we really want to be able to meet those needs. This VSR would now be completely certified, accredited, and trained to co-facilitate much needed mental health groups for the Veterans Treatment Court and other veteran clients. And we've already talked about our state and national accreditation. The PACT Act, so number 4, you see it says open 25% more PACT Act claims than in prior fiscal year. So as Mr. Dietrich mentioned, the federal VA is hiring 20 to 30,000 more VSRs. So they're also competing with us at a much higher salary rate. They need 20,000 to deal with the PACT Act, the new laws and changes. So definitely if we are better staffed, we should see an increase of the number of those claims we'll be able to file on our county veterans' behalves. Also, that would also increase our subvention funding, which is the reimbursement from the state based on our workload units. And hopefully we'll be relocated to the new VSO office in French Camp if approved by the Board of Supervisors. Year 4. So with year 4, we're looking to expand to 8 intermittent outreach satellite offices. And one of those, again, is going to hopefully be at the new CBOC. We're going to continue to increase the number of veteran claims. And so we want to achieve permanent satellite offices at the new CBOC clinic. And we want to then have rotating support for the brand new VA Community Living Center. And again, that's going to be built in a couple of years, and that's a skilled nursing facility. It's the plans are underway, and first date I saw regarding opening is maybe 2026. The new VA Community Living Center, which is a skilled nursing facility, should be, I mentioned that, opened at the end of 2026. It will serve between 80 and 120 veteran families, and our focus will be providing non-service connected pensions, disability services, aid and attendance, special monthly compensation, widow's pension, and burial benefits. Staff retention rates, I'm predicting, will be positive due to succession planning, especially with having that VSR 3 position. I believe that by year 4, we will be much more equitable and have a very competitive pay scale, and we will have completed a move to the brand new one-stop shop office in French Camp, which will be safer, more accessible, which staff will appreciate as well. And then we would like to provide some type of consistent public messaging platform, such as veteran town halls, mini stand-downs, veteran resource and job fairs on a biannual basis. And then year 5, we are looking at decreasing the need for some general funding funds due to the increase in state subvention reimbursement due to our increase in staffing and increase of claims. And that concludes my portion of the presentation. I thank you for your interest and attention, and will now turn the presentation back over to Mr. Greg Dieterich.
This is our last slide. Many of the items that Susan just discussed will be multi-year efforts, and as I stated earlier, some of these will be part of this year's recommended budget, including requests for additional allocated positions, general fund support for the office, and potentially one-time capital funds for a new facility in French Camp. But at this time, I'm recommending to the Board of Supervisors to consider these 4 staff recommendations. As mentioned earlier, we have a new full-time VSR position allocated during the June 2022 final budget, still unfilled. But this gets us back to the number of full-time VSRs in the office that the office had in 2008. But I believe we have an immediate need to further expand VSR staffing by an additional 2 positions, bringing full-time allocation to 5, which would be supported by several filled part-time VSR staff. Ultimately, the more successful veterans benefits claims we submit will result in an increase in subvention funding from the state, and thus some of these new positions may not fully represent ongoing net county costs. Number 2 is to direct healthcare services to continue working with the Housing Authority and the General Services on the potential to develop a new Veteran Service office in French Camp as a component of the next phase of Victory Gardens. Item 3, direct human resources to perform an analysis to create a Veteran Service Representative 3 supervisory classification. And recommendation 4, direct healthcare services to work with the county administrator's office and human resources to recommend as part of fiscal years 2023-2024 final budget the allocation of an appropriately classified administrative support position, an appropriately classified social worker or clinical staff position, and a supervisory veteran service representative position, bringing the total full-time allocated positions for the veteran service offices to 10. I will note that per the Stanislaus County's 2022-2023 adopted budget, there are a total of 7 full-time allocated positions listed for their Veteran Services Department. Chairman Nguyen, this concludes our presentation this morning. This afternoon. Susan and I are available to answer any questions the board may have and to receive input and direction, including additional recommendations the board may wish to make. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Seeing none. All right, let me open it up. Any public comment on this?
Good afternoon, Chairman Nguyen, members of the board. I fully appreciate the detailed presentation that Mr. Dieterich and Ms. Ferry have presented to the board today. It goes a long way to helping the veterans in San Joaquin County understand the plans for the next 5 years. The only thing I would like to comment on is doing things that can be sooner, and the work that we have with Rupert Rivera from Colorado Post 16 with regards to Delta College and potential temporary housing for at least part of the VSO there would go a long way to be an interim fix, if you will. And I know that there are some logistics that go into that have been explained to me, such as needing to work with the General Services Division, I guess, to even move furniture from point A to point B. But if we can look at working with Delta College to do something for the VSO on the interim while the rest of these things are put into motion, that would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Just, I guess, a follow-up on Martha's question is, I know that, and I really appreciate the roadmap, so to speak, that you provided for the future for the next 5 years. However, my experience is, things change. When I say that, I'm only saying that what Martha's suggesting is that we can still explore other options as we go through this. It isn't like in concrete, is it? I mean, this is something that's kind of a vision in regards to achieving that particular goal. And by virtue of that, if something arises that may be expedited or whatever, may be discussed, that, I'm assuming that you are flexible, Ms. Dietrich, to make that change. So this is just kind of a first draft, lack of a better term, of what you intend to do. At least from my vantage point, at least we know where we're going to end up, and how we get there. We may take some side roads, but eventually we'll get there, maybe and hopefully sooner as opposed to later.
Chairman, I'll just say getting our staffing is the key to a lot of this. I did mention we do have a meeting on the books with Delta on November 17th, and I think we'll know a lot more from that point. And I know Susan probably has a lot more history of what the at Delta, the Veterans Office was there, what's happened to it, how it's being reconstituted, and some opportunities. Want to discuss some history? Or?
So I don't know if Stan Rapat is still here. So yeah, Delta, Delta really expanded when Stan was there. It grew a big veteran resource center, and so we're partnering with Casey. He was going to be coming today as well to kind of talk about what are some of the things that we can do to have a presence on there, maintain a presence on there, and then we'll be having a meeting, like Greg said, about looking if we're going to have a more presence on that campus, some space allocated that will make that a little bit of that move happen faster. So we are excited about that possibility, and we have that meeting coming up in, I think, about 2 weeks. So.
Okay. In other words, you're saying that obviously that this is kind of a developing plan that may come quicker as opposed to later, but and I understand when you go out 5 years. I mean, we all have expectations, but sometimes things change. So, but I guess from my vantage point, I can't speak for my fellow supervisors. I at least appreciate that now we have direction. We have kind of an end goal, so to speak, and by virtue of that, I will guarantee you there will be some modifications. That's just in every, plan, even a 2-year plan. So, but from what you're presenting, Mr. Dietrich and Sherry, is that this is your expectation to really achieve the goal that we hear from our veterans in regards to expectations as far as service, especially from the staffing standpoint. When you consider the number of veterans we have here compared to other counties, we obviously need to increase that number to maximize and be more efficient in completing these applications. Am I correct in assuming that?
Absolutely. I feel that we've been critically understaffed for probably the last 15 years. And so the faster we can bring the staff on board, the faster they start going through the training cycle, which is fairly lengthy. And then the faster we can start addressing the needs of this county. We do have, we learned about 532 veterans went to Stanislaus County last year because we didn't have the resources here. We didn't have the trained staff. We want to bring them back. And there's a whole lot more veterans out there that we need to serve that may have in the past, I've talked to different agencies, actually started to avoid our office because of the backlog and the delays and the lack of staffing and so forth.
Okay. Anyone else? Yes. Chairman Roots.
Mr. Chairman, Supervisors, Chuck Roots. I am the chairman of the Veterans Advisory Commission. I've spoken with Supervisor Wynn. I want to address the rest of you. The location currently for the VSO is embarrassing. That should be fixed immediately. The veterans that will come down to that office are looking at an office that is a leftover. It doesn't speak well for what we think of them from this perspective. It's a dangerous area. Susan is in that office with several other people, mostly women. There are people outside of that office on the sidewalk that are downright scary. That should not be. Our veterans should be able to go to a location where they feel safe, whether they are male or female. My suggestion is that and they don't have the room in that office space. There's just not enough room. If they get a veteran in there that has more than one other person with them, they can't fit into a room to be properly interviewed. So my suggestion is that we take some immediate action, get them into a location, the VSO office, into a temporary location in a shopping center, which is much more easily accessible. The parking is available, and the hours would be much more suitable. And this is something that I take personally. I've been down in this office, and it is not where anybody should be working, unless they're, husky individuals who can handle themselves. This is a scary spot. We need to fix this, and I'm asking you to take care of that immediately. I know they've got a plan, a 5-year plan. I'm good with that. But we need to get them out of that location now. Thank you very much.
Supervisor Patty.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. About 45 minutes of a lot of talk, but I mean, Mr. Roots had just said, like, we have a plan here to move something. Is that the first time that's ever come up? I mean, what's actionable? 5-year plan. I got news for you. 1.5 years, 2 years from now, you guys are talking about 5 years. First off, whatever you're talking about in 5 years should be done within 2, flat out. I don't know what you're talking about for 5 years of our veterans who are needing senior care and they're getting aged out in greater need. I honestly, truly, for 45 minutes, we talked about a lot of things. What's actionable now? You guys need some extra money to hire people to bring up the pay scale up, right? Great, ask. We've got an idea to move to a shopping center is better so you have a better office, more convenient, and so it's not an inconvenience. Ask, do it. You've got a very compassionate board. We understand the veterans' needs. I don't know about a 5-year plan, but I don't know. I'd like to know your 6-day, your 6-week, your 6-month plan and how we can accelerate everything the veterans need. That's what I'm interested in.
And I'd say, Supervisor Patty, one of the asks is 2 veteran service representatives being added at the budget cycle, the first-year budget cycle, which would be the next meeting, and working to get basically those lists expanded so we can attract them and recruit them. I mentioned we made several efforts to try to move this office over the last 8 years I've been in the county. It's been there for 20 years. We did relocate several of our offices down to Lathrop. That literally took us 1.5 years to do find the place, sign the rent, or sign the lease, do the leasehold improvement, and then move people in. It's not a quick process, but we're going to meet with Delta on the 17th, and if I get direction from this board, I'll have to work with the real property manager and GS General Services. If we can go out and look at other alternative space and move, I'll take that direction from the board. Ultimately, I want to be down in French Camp.
Understood. I mean, we're here to facilitate, is my opinion, and you've got 2 supervisors that are about to leave, and they've been very compassionate and very understanding for veteran needs. Susan, a question for you. Do you have, we're talking about a pay increase for 2 positions.
Correct.
is that adequate for your entire staff to be fully staffed where we need, so that in conjunction with recruiting people so that we're staffed and helping our 30,000+ veterans, we're also going to be moving into a new place much sooner than a year from now, even if it's a temporary lease, which I can't imagine it takes a year and a half to find a building and lease it, but that's the speed of government in some capacities. Not that it's anybody's fault, but is this 2 positions and increase in salary for the 2 adequate for what you need at this time?
As Supervisor Patty, my personal opinion is because of the lengthy training cycle it takes, I would much rather have 4 or 5 right now and 1 extra admin support so we can start getting them trained in. The training is very difficult. The work is complex, and I would, for me personally, sooner than later, and hiring 4 or 5 up front, I think would be the best solution to try to get some more folks that are able to help. I'm also very supportive of, I'm still very much in a learning role, and Mr. Diedrich has been phenomenal. So I'm ready to move whenever the board is ready, whenever my director is ready. I think that the idea of a shopping center is an excellent idea. I know that our mall has shut down for all intents and purposes and might be looking for a tenant. Like Mr. Diedrich said, we do need to look into the options at Delta College as well. And if we were able to do Victory Gardens, and Mr. Diedrich can provide more information on this, it's going to be a modular building, so it's a quick build. It can be done in 18 months to 24 months. So that's why I was looking at that as an option, because it's right there, like Mr. Diedrich said, on French Camp. But if we needed to move sooner, I would certainly support that as well.
And if I could ask, if I could pull up the last slide for the recommendations, because we have an unfilled full-time that we don't even have a list for right now. I mentioned some threshold requirements with a Civil Service Commission, maybe some board direction on the compensation. The compensation is something that I can't directly recommend today. But in that recommendation, we're asking for 2 additional full-time positions that would get us to 5. 3 of them would still be unfilled until we have those threshold requirements with the list, the minimum qualifications, and maybe compensation being addressed. But also that last item, via this budget cycle, we want to get a VSR 3. That classification doesn't exist right now. That takes some HR civil service work to get through. Also, we've talked about an administrative support position. There's a full-time office assistant / senior office assistant in the office. I could ask for that position right now because it's the type of position we generally use. I'm asking HR to look at that. Is that the right position long term? Do we need another office assistant, or do we need an office secretary, a management analyst, a different classification for other needs? I need to have that really reviewed, other than just asking for an OA right now and kind of being that's what the position would be. Similarly, what are we looking for as far as a social worker? Is this a social worker, a mental health specialist, a mental health clinician? Really looking through the budget process and submitting what's called a new position request form through HR in that process for them to vet and really inform us what is the proper classification for our intended use.
Got it. So through the chair, I'd like to ask, I see Ms. Hopkins in the background, if she can come forward and maybe find out how we can facilitate, so this isn't an 8, 10, 12, 16, 18-month vetting process. We have a competent staff, I'm sure. We've got dozens of people working in that department, so let's facilitate success. Ask for it, let's get it. Ms. Hopkins, what would be the timeline based on what Director Dietrich is asking? That looks like there's a review, there's a consideration, there's a possible analysis of what position and how to get there, and just seems like a lot of discussion. Where are we? How can we facilitate staff? How do we accentuate it? And what's the timeline so you can help them accomplish what we need for the veterans?
Through the chair, Supervisor Patty, Human Resources will address some of these issues to the board in closed session on November 29th. It's already been placed on the agenda. Some of the items that Mr. Diedrich's talking about are new, and we're still getting that information from him, and we'll need to go through the civil service process. So we'll need to be able to do the analysis and then get it on a civil service agenda prior to getting it onto the board agenda. So that's usually at least a 3 to 4 month process. But as soon as we have the information from Healthcare Services, and Director Diedrich and I have been talking quite a bit about how to move this through quickly. I would anticipate in the next 4 to 6 months we should be able to wrap up the requests that he has.
And that could, if we kind of lit a fire here and figuratively speaking, of course, and we were to find a location, we can do a sublet of a location or do a 1-year lease for something until we've broken ground and we know something's going up, something of that nature, 1-year lease with a year to renew or 6-month renewal. So we're buying time when we're moving to maybe a more permanent location. I think we could maybe coincide this together. I'm just one supervisor here. I'm not speaking for the entire board, but I'm just saying, like, let's get things moving.
And we have a meeting, the first one physically at Delta College on the 17th. I'd like to see their space. They did close down during COVID. Susan mentioned Stan Rapato was there for a long time. Now he's at UOP. What does their office look like? Is it large enough for everything we need? Do I need to do tenant improvements there? What type of IT infrastructure? Is it going to be in kind? Again, how do I do wayfinding? We're on Delta campus, but where? Is the parking going to be sufficient? If we can pivot towards a lease at a strip mall, that would be something not to have to use general services. But when we moved, and a lot of this was supply chain things, but we signed the lease in Lathrop. It took us another 3.5 months before we could move in, just with delays with permitting, getting cubicles, getting electrical done in there. If there's a turnkey leasable place that we can get through general services in a timely fashion and minimize any of the bureaucracy, if you will, I'm all for it. I don't want to be the impediment, but it's just there are certain constraints and realities sometimes.
Got it. All right. Well, that's again, I'm one supervisor, but I know we're all empathetic to veterans. Today's a great day to have this discussion. So I'm in favor of moving forward as quickly as possible.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the public? Okay.
They're shorthanded. We have one VSO. That's Susan. That's not nearly enough. She has to have the support. Now, I know that there are qualifications for certain people to hold certain positions. That's fine. We need those people to be going through that process. Sometimes that takes upwards of 2 years, as I understand it from Susan. Okay, let's get that in the pipeline. Let's make that happen so that 2 years from now, we have people stepping into that position, not putting it off. The other thing is there needs to be grunt work done in these offices that doesn't require the kind of stipulations that are required for other people. We need people who can just do office work, who can manage an office, who can help oversee the whole operation. That kind of a position is an important one, but it's an administrative position, and it doesn't require those other qualifications. We need to have those people in there. That would help an enormous amount. But again, relocation. There is no reason we can't have them in there within a matter of weeks. Some other location in our county here, please. That is doable. I'm firmly convinced of that. You folks can make that happen. Please.
Vice Chair Rickman.
Oh, thank you, Chair. I know this isn't an actionable item, but I do agree with Supervisor Patty. I'm going to bring something back to the board. I mean, you heard what some of our concerns are, and bring it back so we can sooner than later.
Well, I think the intent was, and correct me if my discussions was that the recommendations from Mr. Dieterich actually would like approval by the board to proceed in some of the suggestions that have been made during this particular meeting. Is that correct?
The 4 recommendations on that last slide, as well as anything else that might come from the DS as far as direction or a motion.
Yeah, I think we can approve this and give them at least a sense of the direction, and certainly some of the suggestions made by certainly Chairman Roots, et cetera. So I had somebody as a speaker, but I lost them. Supervisor Miller.
Thank you. I would make the motion to approve these 4 recommendations with the added recommendation that I know we're moving forward with a meeting with Delta College, But I think we should have general services begin looking to see if there is a quick location that we could have as a plan B. We don't know what's going to happen with Delta College. We haven't seen the space. We don't know what the terms will be. So I think it makes sense to go ahead and develop an alternative plan as quickly as possible so that we're ready to move. As the needs are very demonstrated, and these are very reasonable requests. And so I would also hope that in the next budget season, we're going to see, I mean, we have to fill these, and it is going to take a while, and we're already going to be in the next budget cycle in just a few months. I'm hopeful that there will be an additional recommendation coming forward next May to get the rest of the personnel on board. And in the meantime, we will have the analysis from HR, so we'll have a much better sense of what those classifications need to be and what sort of compensation level we're going to need to offer. So for now, I would move these 4 items plus instruct Mr. Diedrich to work with General Services to develop a potential alternative temporary relocation site.
I'll second.
Just a quick comment. I think, Mr. Diedrich, in your presentation, I think, and I know I've talked to you and Susan, and I think the way you've presented this, I think you pointed out the challenges you face in regards to the certification process. You did talk about alternative qualifications in regards to getting people there. They don't necessarily have to have the accreditation, but they understand the process to assist, at least preliminarily. So I think there's plenty of information there that you can act upon, and certainly with the input of the board today, I would suspect that. And I also understand that you can't just flip a switch and say, okay, we're going to hire 2 people. I understand we deal with departments in recruitment and retention are critical. So, but I think, and I appreciate the fellow supervisor's comments, I think you have a sense of an idea of the urgency for this and to move as quickly as possible. But and some may complain about the bureaucracy, but unfortunately bureaucracy is there because the law or ordinances require it. So again, okay, we have a motion and a second. Clerk of the board. And it's adopted 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Deere.
Thank you, Chair.
Susan.
And Chair, I have a parliamentary inquiry, if you don't mind. That I would like to make a motion to postpone item 3, 4, and 6 to the following scheduled regular board meeting.
And the reason?
I'll second.
In time. I mean, it's already 4:30. I mean, it's an election. Election, and people need to go home and leave here and go vote if they're out of town. So
now voters are open. Polls
are
open till 8.
So you're gonna, but that's my reasoning.
Okay. Well, you have a motion second.
I kind of agree. Supervisor Perry's running for Congress. I'm sure he has a lot of calls to make. I think.
Well, the thing is that Supervisor Patty can leave if he chooses to.
And Chair Nguyen, I'd like to ask if there's the HAP, if there's a timing issue for our submission by the end of the month.
Yeah.
Chair Nguyen, members of the board, I must get authorization from the board today to apply. My deadline for that is November 29th. Additionally, the other item in reference to St. Mary's, I would ask that we see that today simply because we have some guests here that have been here since 9 o'clock this morning waiting to give a presentation to the board. I understand that today's a special day and it's very late, but that would be my request to the board.
When's next board meeting? November 29th. So if we did it on the 29th, that would be too late?
My deadline for the application is November 29th, so yes, it would be.
What item number is that?
I believe it's item number 6, yes.
Okay, then if that's the case, then I'll make a motion to postpone items 3 and 4 to the following scheduled regular board meeting.
I'll second it.
But we're hearing number 5?
Right, we have to. because of timing.
So we do have a vote ready to go.
Yep.
Adopted 3-2.
Majority for this next one. Thank you.
Excuse me for a second.
Oh, sure.
We just made a vote to expedite the closing of this meeting, and the person who's been pushing for it just left. So why are we doing this?
Well, I already gave my.
Well, let me finish. So we have gone till 6 o'clock in board meetings in the past. I don't think any of us have any appointments other than maybe some election night gatherings, which aren't going to probably start till 7:30. I guess I'm wondering why are we pushing this off the 29th? The 29th is packed. We're going to be here till 8 o'clock on the 29th if we don't hold these particular items. So I guess my question is, I thought this was all for Supervisor Patty, and he's gone. Why are we doing this?
Chair, I already made, mine wasn't for Supervisor Patty. I mean, we have workers here, people that want to go home and vote, and you know, this is a very important day to people. I mean, may not agree with me, and that's fine, but I mean, I made the motion and it passed, so why are we still discussing it?
Well, I would offer another motion to continue and finish this agenda, because I don't see any reason that we would end early. Staff is they're here, you know, oftentimes well after 5, and I don't think there's any reason to say that they need to go somewhere. And I think there's still people in the audience that need to finish.
Supervisor Rickman has an hour drive home. I get it. And I'm sure everyone here wants to go home and vote, and I'm sure they have events to do. I have events to go to also. I'm comfortable with suspending 3 and 4. If we can finish 5 and 6, if you'd like to vote, I think it'd be 2.
I understand that. So what I'm saying is that, so if on the 29th we end up at 7 o'clock at night, that's okay, right? Is this all because of the election and one candidate wanted to get out of here?
Well, I know Supervisor Rickman has an hour drive home.
I've got a 35-minute drive home.
It is, if we get to 7 o'clock on the 29th, it is what it is. I mean, but tonight we do.
Okay, all right.
Do have plans.
Just understand where the priorities are for this board.
Right.
And what's the priority is that, Chair? I mean, you may not like the result of it, but we're doing it per procedure, per policy, per Robert's Rules of Order. I mean, like I said, people are sitting here. You know, we have employees that want to go home and vote. Yeah, it's 3 hours, but what if, you know, there's a traffic accident, and what if something? I mean, again, don't make it sound like these items aren't important to us, but Election Day is an important in our democracy, and I think people should have a chance to go vote and do it in a manner that they're not rushed. And that's my reason. I just, you know, we talked about being civil up here. I mean, I just wish you wouldn't try to put some alternative motive and make it, you know, demean to board members like this stuff isn't important. That's not fair.
It's just
not fair.
It's just a question of reality. I mean, we have 2 board meetings a month. I think it would be not too much to ask that we all attend them and complete them as they're agendized. Anyway, I understand. So, Supervisor Miller.
Yeah, I would just like to say that we've all known this is Election Day, and there's all kinds of ways to accommodate voting. You can, even if you want to vote in person, there's a lot of ways that you can accommodate. You could have taken a break and gone down to the ROV's office earlier today. But we also have a whole bunch of people standing in the back of this room that have an item on here, and they've been sitting here since 8:45 this morning with the expectation that a project that they've been working on for a long time is going to be heard and discussed by this board today. And essentially, I mean, to say that our staff is being prevented from voting.
Chair, point of order.
Simply not the case. And so I want to go on the record as saying I'm really disappointed about this. And yes, the 29th, we're probably going to be here until 8 o'clock now.
Chair, I have a point of order. Are you going to listen to it as you were required to?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we're debating something that's already been voted on, which
I
is
understand.
outside of what we're supposed to be doing here. You guys may not like what the board determined, but it's time for us to move on.
Chair, I just got a text from Supervisor Patty. He's on his way back. So you know.
If we're not going to move on, then why don't we we can only do a privilege of motion to adjourn. If that's the case, we're just going to be stuck on this.
No, I think the conversation's over. Anyway, Mr. Merlo, are you ready?
2022 California Building Code and its related codes, the Residential, Electrical, Mechanical, Plumbing, Green Building Code, and then the Fire Code. And I have with me Doug Hensel, who is a former Community Development Building official who was working on the adoption of these codes, and we're here to answer any questions that you might have about the code process.
Good afternoon, Supervisors. The item before you is the adoption of the 2022 Building, Residential, Electrical, Mechanical, Plumbing, Green Building, and the Fire Code. Our recommendation is to introduce and waive reading of the proposed ordinance. They amend Chapter 1, Division 1 of Title 8 of the County Ordinance Code. For the Fire Code, it's Chapter 1, Division 1, Title 4. We'd also like the authorization to prepare a summary of the ordinance pursuant to Government Code 25124, and then agendize the proposed amendments for adoption at the November 29th meeting. A little bit of background about codes and code adoption in California. State agencies adopt model codes that are enforced by local jurisdictions, and that's throughout the state. Model codes used by California are specified in law. They're specified in the Health and Safety Code. The codes are updated on a nationwide basis every 3 years, and we refer to those as model codes. State agencies amend the model codes to meet their programmatic and statutory objectives, and the county is mandated to enforce the codes that they adopt. State agencies, however, typically don't amend the codes for administrative functions unless they're given statutory authority. Administrative requirements are typically adopted locally. That's the permit expiration type things, the day-to-day operations that we use to operate the building department. The effective dates of California codes are set by the California, Okay.
I just saw blinking. I thought my eyes were going bad.
I apologize. Effective date of California codes are set by the Building Standards Commission, and it's January 1st of 2023. We must adopt those administrative provisions by January 1, or the code goes into effect without our administrative provisions. The administrative provisions aren't building standards, so we don't have to file those with the state before they can take effect. We can also make changes that are considered building standards, so how you actually construct a building within the county. We're allowed to do that for climatic, topographical, and geological conditions. Historically, the county has not proposed many building standard amendments. That's the case with this proposed package. We have two. One limits the height of a 120 square foot tool shed, playhouse storage shed to 12 feet. The reason we did that amendment is to provide some additional structural stability for height in wind situations. These structures are exempt from the code, but they still need to meet the requirements of the code. The other is some additional measures for pallet storage yards to address their rural conditions, the amount of time it takes first responders to get there, and then the ability for them to have water and sufficient access to fight a fire if it were to happen. That's the end of what I've had to share with you. Be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions?
No question.
I have a question in regards to the pallets. It's 12-foot height, correct? Is that the restriction currently, or at least the new?
That's right.
Okay, so, and it also has distances involved, obviously next to property lines, et cetera. What was the previous height allowance for pallets?
Steve, can you help us out?
Steve Butler, Deputy Fire Warden, San Joaquin County. The previous height was 20 feet on pallet storage. We reduced it down to 12 because of stability under fire conditions and wind conditions. This falls in line with the City of Stockton ordinance.
So when you say stability, I can understand maybe on the other side, maybe to reduce the fire material, the wood, obviously higher, you have more wood to catch fire. Does this apply indoors or just outdoors?
This is for the outdoor storage of the pallet and in the pallet yards.
Okay, so what's the height? Do we have any control or regulation over the height inside?
Let me take a look at the ordinance, sir.
Yeah, the reason I ask that is because if it's for stability, I'm assuming we're thinking about wind as opposed to just the height of a pallet structure.
Well, we're also talking about during fire conditions. So as you all know, pallets have a lot of open space, and as the fire consumes from underneath, those pallets get weak really quick. And they have a tendency to come down and trap firefighters in the zones that they're trying to protect and extinguish those fires.
Got it.
By lowering that 8 foot down to 12, that gives the piles a better stability factor. And then with the wind factors, you don't have the big ember casts going out of the pallet yard in the neighborhoods.
Got it. Okay, I understand. I appreciate that. Thank you, Steve. Any other questions? Mr. Rickman.
Thank you, Chairman. These rules and regulations, and we're just complying with what we have to do by January 1st, but is the county going more or being more restrictive with our building standards than the state is? Or are we just going to apply in state law?
More restrictive for the height limitation.
Well, anything.
On a shed, yes. So the two areas.
The two areas of one was what were there?
Height on a storage shed limited to 12 feet, and then the provisions for pallet storage. Those would be more restrictive.
I can see the pallet storage. Why are we being more restrictive in the height of a storage shed? If I don't know, if I'm out in the country and I have, 2 acres or an acre, why do you care if it's 15 feet?
The height to width ratio of the structure and the wind load against it, and it's an exempt from a permit structure, so we don't really know what the foundation system or the anchoring is going to be. That's historically why we've done it. It's an amendment that we brought forward from the last 2 code cycles, I believe.
But have we had any issues with that? I mean, the wind is less in Lodi than it is in, say, Mountain House or off of 580. So why is... I just don't see, I see what you're saying, but to me it's kind of, government going on your property and trying to dictate to you what you can do, even though is there precedent that have we had issues with 12-foot or 13-foot buildings being blown away, or, yes?
was actually in response to some big windstorms that we had about 6-8 years ago, I guess. And there were several buildings, I believe they were tough sheds, that were taller than the allowed 8 foot, and they did blow off of their foundations. And as Mr. Hensel indicated, we don't regulate these buildings for foundation for permits, so we don't know if they've been anchored properly. But we do limit the height because of those. So we had about 4 buildings during one winter that blew off their foundations across fields onto neighbors' properties. One of them crashed into a house, and so this was actually, as Mr. Hensel said, 2 code cycles ago, we added this in response to that situation.
Okay, well, I mean, I don't want to, like I'm coming after you guys.
No.
But,
I understand, yeah.
But now, this isn't retroactive, is it?
No.
Okay, so people that have a 15-foot tall storage shed isn't going to be harassed by the county?
No. And they would not have been required to get a building permit, so there would be no code enforcement action against them because of that, basically.
So you're talking like 12 by 10, right? And what is that? Is that what it is? When they don't need a permit?
Right, 120 square feet.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate it.
Any other questions? Okay. Any public comment? Seeing none. Any comment? Email?
No, there's not.
Okay. All right. So we need a motion and a second.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Let's adopt 3-1.
Thank you.
Right. Mr. Cheshire.
Board, appreciate your patience and allowing me to present this today. As I mentioned, the state released the application for round 4 of the Homeless Housing Assistance and Prevention Program. The deadline to apply for that, the release date was September 30th. Deadline is November 29th. The state is really expediting round 4. To give you some context, we had 5 months to apply for round 3. So before you today, the recommendation is to authorize the Director of Healthcare Services to apply for and receive funding under round 4 of what I will now refer to as HHAP, or the HAP program. In addition, there is a requirement, as it was in round 3, that I present a streamlined version of information regarding demographics, outcome goals, and strategies related to what it will be included in the application to the state. This is as a result of California Health and Safety Code 50220.7B2. Governing bodies are not required to take action or formally adopt this information. You are only being asked today, in addition to the authorization to apply, to accept this report. This is not unique to San Joaquin County. The San Joaquin Continuum of Care and the City of Stockton must also meet this requirement, along with every other HAP jurisdiction in the state of California. You may recall that on May 24th, the supervisors received a very similar report, in fact, a nearly identical report from me regarding the HAP3 presentation. The reason it is mostly unchanged is because the data hasn't changed, the outcome goals haven't changed, because, as I mentioned, the state is really expediting, as a result of direction from the state legislature, the application for round 4. So again, I appreciate your patience. Bear with me. I will attempt to move through this as quickly as possible. Some of the funding estimates that are required to be submitted for the application. A major goal of the HAP program is to facilitate collaboration, not just around the expenditure of these funds, but also any funds for housing and homelessness in a given jurisdiction. So I'm highlighting several of those here. I won't go into deep details. You'll notice that I'm mentioning round 3 here. We know how much we're being allocated in round 3, although we haven't actually gotten authorization directly from the state yet to receive those funds. Still waiting on that. Round 4, we do not know how much is being allocated yet. The state has not told us that. And I also want to highlight the Housing Choice Voucher Program, which is what formerly would be called Section 8. It's managed by the Housing Authority, $180 million over 4 years for rental assistance in San Joaquin County. Just a massive program. Certainly not all of those funds will go to people experiencing homelessness, but many will. The goals that we set, frankly, my job was made quite a bit easier because of the work of the Continuum of Care. These system performance goals come from the Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD, through their COC program. And in February of 2020, the local COC Board of Directors adopted these goals as a result of a lot of work from one of their committees. So again, I won't go over in detail all of these, but you can see kind of what the goals are. And again, this is not just pulled out of thin air. This is as a result of a lot of work and consensus building. Additionally, through the result of a lot of work and consensus building, a strategic plan was developed, which I know you're all familiar with. This board actually adopted that strategic plan in June of 2020. And we see here some of the strategies, some of the goals around reducing homelessness in San Joaquin County, and some of the targets. And I will say that we are on track or already have exceeded all of those targets today. And we hope to do a much better job going forward. The data, as I mentioned, that will be included in the HAP4 application comes from the point-in-time count. That's the most recent data we have. Again, it hasn't changed from the last time that I spoke to you about this. So I probably won't go into details on each point for purposes of haste, but you can see kind of the information that's presented there. And again, I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have or details. Total experiencing homelessness in the January 2022 point-in-time count, 2,036. You can see some of the demographic breakdown, 132 veterans, which is an important statistic given today's presentations. Some additional demographic information. Again, this is just high-level stuff. We see the majority of folks counted said that they became homeless in San Joaquin County, that many have a cash income of some kind or a non-cash income. That would include things like general assistance. Some of the city-specific data, really no surprises here. The gender breakdown is very typical for what we see from the sheltered population or from data that we collect year in and year out. These are more city-specific data. Interestingly, the majority of folks are reporting that they became first homeless in the community that they were counted in, 82%, for example, in Stockton. The length of time homeless, which would be one of the indicators for chronic homelessness, the vast majority of folks indicated more than 1 year. Here we see some additional information from the two larger communities of Stockton and Manteca around and when I say larger, I mean in terms of their total homeless population, around some things like cash income. Do they have medical insurance? The majority do. You see the percentage of homeless veterans that were counted. Similar data for Lodi and Tracy. We see a 50% jump in Lodi, and as I mentioned in May, that is partly as a result of growth in homelessness in that community, but also as a result of a big jump in the number of volunteers from the previous count. So when we have more volunteers on the ground, we're just simply going to do a better job of counting. And so that is in part what we've seen, and I will mention since that time, the city of Lodi, through investments from the county and other directions, has opened their access center and is really expanding emergency shelter kind of at the forefront of that, where the cities of Tracy and Manteca are also working very hard and have budgets in place to do the same thing. And we're looking forward to reporting that back to you. Similar information regarding Lodi and Tracy around where folks first became homeless, how long they were homeless. Pretty interesting information for someone like me just to kind of understand the inflow and the outflow of the system. Again, some more data here mirroring what we saw in Stockton and Manteca. So with that, I will be happy to answer any questions and look forward to a motion from the board. Thank you.
Any questions? Okay.
I have a question.
Supervisor Miller.
Mr. Cheshire, We've been hearing and reading about the fact that Governor Newsom is going to withhold $1 billion worth of funding because he doesn't feel that the housing goals in various areas even remotely high enough to make a difference in homelessness. Does that impact this program?
Yes. So to speak, so what it impacts is HAP 3, round 3. Round 4, I'm still applying for. When you say this program, if you mean HAP writ large,
that's what I mean.
Certainly, we've received funds from round 1, and those are on the street. We've received funds from round 2; those are on the street. Round 3 is being delayed. How long that goes on? The date for the governor's convening has been announced as November 18th. Presumably, there will be a representative from this body that attends that convening. What the results of that are is anybody's guess. But my hope is that following these conversations and hearing the feedback from local communities around the challenges that we experience in getting folks off the street when multifamily housing has the sort of capacity issues that we're seeing, where our vacancy rates are near 0% on any given day, there's a maximum sort of ability to reduce homelessness in a given community given those circumstances. That is not unique to San Joaquin County. There is no community in the state of California that has solved homelessness. I think the governor is going to be hearing that loud and clear from folks like us. And certainly that's been kind of the feedback that I've been providing to folks as I've been fielding these questions for the last several days. I will say that I've seen a list of by the way, one outcome goal, unsheltered homelessness, reducing unsheltered homelessness. There are multiple goals, I think 7 or 8 associated, but the one that Governor Newsom is really focused on is that unsheltered homelessness reduction goal. A great goal, right, and one that we're all very focused on. We are 21st on the list of all the communities, so right in the middle of the pack, maybe a little bit above the middle of the pack. For example, Los Angeles City and County is at 10%. That's what they're looking at doing. Our rate, as we said, was 8%. Again, that was not pulled out of thin air. That was as a result of lots of discussion, consensus building from the continuum of care, from the results of our strategic plan and sort of the guidance from our strategic plan, but also market research that indicates how little capacity we have in our multifamily housing market and our affordable housing market. So again, we have a long way to go in terms of adding to that capacity and exits from our shelter system, which we've done, in my opinion, and I think is objective, a very good job of funding and expanding shelter. That's great, but there's going to be a limit to how successful those investments are without exits from shelter. So again, that is what the governor needs to hear from local communities, is that withholding these funds is not going to move the needle on this dynamic. It is not going to improve in any sense ours or other communities' ability to solve, considering what we've already done with HAP 1 and 2, millions and millions of dollars on the street, lots of new beds of emergency shelter, more than doubling the existing capacity prior to those investments, hundreds of units of permanent supportive housing. And then let's talk about all the other funding that we've been, ARPA, for example, which I'll be back next meeting to talk to you about. It's really inexplicable, frankly.
Okay. I mean, has he given any clues as to what? I mean, he was saying something about what I read was, 5%. Well, that's not going to, even move the needle on this. I mean, you can set whatever goals you want, but if they aren't achievable, it's an exercise in futility. And so I'm just wondering, is he looking for information to hear why the goals aren't being set higher, or is he looking for information to help determine whether the current funding level from the state is high enough to move the needle?
Well, it's a great question, Supervisor. One can hope that the answer is the latter. I think it's anybody's guess at the end of the day what he's looking for. I think that'll become apparent in this convening next week. I will mention that in HAP 3, and this is the case also for the 4th round, there is a pot of what they call bonus funding, which will be according to what we're hearing and what's in the statute, be made available to local communities that meet these goals. Well, local communities like ours set these goals. And there is a sort of inherent conflict there that I think we're seeing now in the system that they've set up. It's breaking down in the sense that we've got communities that are presumably setting goals perhaps a little lower than they might because they know that if they achieve those goals, they're going to be able to access this bonus funding. Well, I think maybe what we're seeing is that's not the greatest way to incentivize local communities when the result ultimately is, you know, the governor calling our supervisors and others to task for not setting high enough goals when, you know, again, I think we can rest on the realities of our multifamily housing market and sort of the capacity issues that we're going to experience and continue to experience. That has to be taken into account by Governor Newsom. It just has to. It is the reality. It's an unavoidable circumstance that every community is dealing with right now.
Okay, thank you.
Supervisor Patty, welcome back.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I think there was some chatter outside. I was able to listen. I had an upset stomach and had to use the restroom, but there was some discussion at length about my returning or coming back, so I don't know what, any confusion I can satisfy? Anything in particular to review before we go on? All right, thank you. Mr. Cheshire, how are you doing?
Very good. How are you, sir?
Excellent. What conversations are being had for services, mental health services, drug treatment? Because we know if we're just housing them and locking them away, I've got a report that, for the sake of time, honestly, I don't want to read. It's probably 10 minutes in Newsweek, but from Michelle Steeb, the former director over at the St. John's in Sacramento,
yeah.
who you're familiar with.
Yeah.
And the article just counts at how we've spent billions in the last 10 years, and the homeless population has gone up by 40%. So the housing first model is not working. It's a piece, as you say, it's a piece to the puzzle, but it's not the only way to fix things. Just like a shelter is not the only way to do it, or the motel room is not the only thing to do. So I can understand a conglomeration of efforts and actions, but what discussion is being made for services, mental health and drug treatment?
I mean, those discussions happen concurrently, right? I mean, it's the housing is a component, but it's the most important component, right? It's the linchpin of the entire system in order to make the investments that we provide in shelter more effective at all. We have to be able to exit folks out of there so that we move folks in, get them stably housed, keep them stably housed, right? That's how you solve homelessness, right? Folks in shelter are still homeless. So providing supportive services when we're talking about permanent supportive housing, you know, again, the funding that the county has provided through HAP, but also MHSA, and, you know, we can talk about other sources of funding, have not only funded the physical units, opening the doors, but then provide the ongoing case management services. So, for example, Victory Gardens is the one that we just went to, and that was something I'm certainly very proud of. There's deep supportive services associated with that project, and that is as a result of the funding streams that were in part enabled by San Joaquin County. Crossway Residences is another example. That's been open for a long time, and that population is folks who are SMI, severely mentally ill.
Right, but okay, just let me jump in, because we got veterans, we have mental health services there. But when we're talking about this funding coming in, we're talking about the unsheltered. Everybody understands, and they see and they encounter and they look at there's needles everywhere, so we have drug treatment. You cannot take that person, put them in an apartment and go, we've resolved it, they are now home, they now have a home. So is there any discussion, maybe it's a yes or no answer, is there any discussion to understand that, let's say, the entry point, because here's the truth. In the last 2 years, we have, 5 million undocumented immigrants have just come into America, is a number that's been bandied about. We have, as our chairman just pointed out, we fall behind every year 90 to 100,000 doors, tens of thousands of doors short here in San Joaquin County. We are not going to be housing our way out of the homeless environment that we have, especially with now 5 million new undocumented, and they're probably going to be given housing vouchers and be put into apartments and given priority versus the unsheltered that have a need for services. Primarily mental health and drug assistance, drug treatment. So is there any, and again, maybe it's just a yes or no. I know we got veterans, we've got the mental health, and this is phenomenal actions that have been taken. Not knocking the system at all. We have actually mobilized and done probably, by the time the emergency shelters that we funded are done, we're probably close to 1,000 beds, I think, with mental health and with the shelters that Lodi, Manteca, Tracy, Stockton's working on a program that they're going to be bringing to the board that we've set some money aside. So we're getting close to 1,000 beds of the 2,000 people. So I get it. Is there any discussion as it relates to the services to have a positive impact versus just getting them into a house?
Yes.
Awesome. So do we have anything coming forward? Is that metrics that we need to meet, or where is that at in the process?
I don't have anything that I would be comfortable discussing publicly now, but even just today, I mean, as we mentioned, spent all day in this room with the Chief Executive Officer of St. Mary's Dining Room, and we had some discussions along these lines of again, without getting into too much detail, supporting their programs.
Sure. Okay. So there's things in the pipeline.
And as long as the funding remains at the levels that they continue through things like ARPA, we're going to have the resources to do this kind of stuff going forward. And I hope that continues.
Excellent. Thank you. Well, I think we're here to facilitate. So thank you. It's kind of the questions I wanted to see where we're headed and what's in the pipeline. Thanks.
Any other questions? Okay. Board action?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Adopted 5-0. Mr. Cheshire, your other item number 3 discussion, how long will that take?
There's a presentation involved. The folks involved have already left, so
right.
yeah, we're going to punt it till the 29th.
Not a problem.
Yeah, if that's
All
okay.
right.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So which items again did we postpone until the 29th?
4.
Which ones? 3 and 4?
3 and 3, 4.
So that concludes the discussion items that were on the agenda.
Okay, got it. All right. So
Night.
yeah. All right. Well, because some members think that, time is of the essence, I'm just going to go ahead and adjourn until the 29th. So with that, we're adjourned.
Thank you.
Have a good night. Have a good night.
you